7.
You cannot call the meeting to order.
I was gonna say,
All you can
that.
do is have discussion.
Ooh. Well, I can't call the meeting to order, I've been informed. And so we're going to have a discussion.
The reason is because a quorum is not present.
I see. Oh, the quorum. That's interesting. So even calling the meeting to order needs a quorum. Oh, okay. That's good
I
to
wasn't
know.
aware of that either, but it's probably a nice technicality.
Yeah, no, it's good to know. I mean, we rarely have that where this many people are not present for the select board, especially.
You get the
Yeah.
got it.
All right. Well, normal things. Review agenda for addition, removal, or adjustment of any items. Val, any new things for the agenda this evening?
Not that I'm aware of, though I will
Okay.
have various updates under my TA report.
Okay. Number 2, overview of Zoom meeting operations and procedures, rules for participation. Everyone mute their microphones, and please be recognized by myself, the chair, if you wish to speak. Item 2, public forum. Opportunity for viewers here and there to say anything that they'd like to say under 5 minutes.
Or those present, too.
Or those present, right. That isn't related to anything on the agenda for this evening. I don't see anyone looking out there. Okay. Okay. Department head roundtable. This is 5 minutes per person for various heads of the town. Let's start with where have we got here? Let's start with Meredith this evening for the recreation department.
Once this gets
Right.
called over, are you gonna have to go back through all over again? No. Okay, perfect.
All right, Meredith. Thank you.
All right, so the rec department, the biggest news on the block is that Alex has put his 2 weeks in, and he will be going to the Williston Parks and Recreations Department. So we're sad to see him go, but we're pretty excited about the direction that he's going to. So this Friday will be his last day. So if you see him, please let him know and say thank you for all his time. He came on board in August 2018 when we were all still pretty fresh. I had just started in May. So he's been with the transition of the new style of rec department. So he's really been a great resource for where we're at right now. And then other news, townwide yard sale, June 25th. That's starting to pick up, and we're getting a lot of folks sending in their requests to get their addresses on the map. We've got our traditional teddy bear picnic, June 14th, and then we start our summer programming June 15th, the day after school ends. We start out with a 3-day girls mountain bike camp, and then we go all the way until August 19th. So busy summer.
Sounds like it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Very sad to see Alex go. Obviously, other opportunities out there. So I think we all wish him the best with his new endeavors. He will be missed, I think. He added a great deal to the department.
I have a question for Meredith about Alex's departure, and how will that affect your program schedule?
So it will, luckily we are bringing on Zoe, who will be our summer assistant counselor. It does put some pressure on the river camp. We do 2 sessions of those. So Taylor and I will be brainstorming that. Definitely, Taylor and I we'll be meeting and discussing and figuring out what our summer wants to look like. And maybe going in a new direction of what we're asking for the next person. But for right now, I've got a few people that I might just see if they'll fill in who are qualified and have taught outdoor programming before. So that's one of the avenues that we'll take a look at. For the other programming, like shared things that Alex and I have done, if we don't get anybody in that place, then I'll just do them.
Thank you, Meredith.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Meredith? All right. Let's call on Bruce Nason, Chief of the Police Department. Bruce.
Good evening. So today is the start of the annual Click It or Ticket campaign, which goes through until June 5th. So you will see an increase in traffic patrols related to not just seat belts, but speed and other violations. So I urge people to buckle up and drive carefully.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Any questions for Bruce? Alrighty, thanks, Bruce. Let's move on. Brett for the fire department is unable to join us this evening. He sent along a update that I will read. Let's take a look here. To members of the Select Board and Town Administrator, my apologies for not being able to join you this evening. Tonight, the Fire Department is hosting a special training opportunity for the 5 town fire departments. Let's see. Training subject, photovoltaic safety training for firefighters. With consumers going solar in nearly every state, the likelihood that firefighters will encounter solar electric systems on residential and commercial properties is increasing dramatically every year. This solar photovoltaic safety for firefighters training is intended to give firefighters the knowledge necessary to feel confident and safe when responding to fires on solar photovoltaic equipped structures and to better understand the potential hazards. Topics include system identification, the hazards associated with operating at a structure with a system installed, and tactical considerations surrounding buildings containing photovoltaic systems. Tonight's training instructors include Steve Cobb from Bristol Electronics and Bristol Fire Department Captain Matthew Lathrop, representing the Vermont Division of Fire Safety. Call for service report. As of May 23rd, 2022, the fire department has dispatched and responded to 53 calls for service incidents. The following is the breakdown of incidents by this type. Building fire 5, medical assist EMS crew 13, motor vehicle crashes 13, hazardous material incident 2, alarm system and smoke detector activations 8, carbon monoxide incidents 3, power lines down 2, unauthorized burning 3, dispatched and canceled en route 2, forest fire approximately 3 acres behind Bristol Pond 1, filling Greenwood Cemetery water tank 1. The May 13th forest fire logged a total of 54 hours of work performed by 7 Bristol firefighters. The May 21st building fire logged a total of 71 hours of work performed by 13 Bristol firefighters. Note, the Bristol Fire Department filled 20 tanker trucks in support of the 521 operation using an estimated 55,000 gallons of water. Hand sanitizer. Reminder that the fire department took delivery of a pallet of Bar Hill hand sanitizer from Caledonia Spirits on May 10th. The product is packaged in 7-ounce bottles, and there are 24 bottles in a case. As of today, 5/23, the inventory is 100 cases remaining from the original delivery of 184. If anyone would like to take advantage of this free hand sanitizer, please call 453-3201 and leave a voicemail message. This is a fire department non-emergency number, or email bristolfiredepartment@gmail.com to make arrangements to pick up. End of the report for Brett. Okay. Any questions for Brett?
I would say you probably could contact any firefighter. They would also be able to get you.
Okay, that's good to know. Excellent. I'm glad that's being used. Let's call on Sharon, Town Clerk.
Okay, for my update, we got our new tabulator today. And this one actually works. The last one didn't work. So I had a quick tutorial, and then Thursday afternoon for 4 hours, I'll be learning more about it at offsite training. And as a note, we are closed on Thursday due to the offsite training. And of course, we're closed on Friday and again on Monday for the holiday. This week is Thursday's the last day for candidates to get their petitions and their forms and their financial disclosure forms in. And I have cleared it with the Secretary of State that as long as I give notification, and Anthony will check on Thursday to see if anybody has put anything in. And if they have, then he'll scan them to me and I'll upload them to the Secretary of State's website.
When you say put anything in, you mean into the Dropbox?
Yes,
Okay,
that's where they'll put it in because the office will be closed.
right.
I'm only expecting a couple more. I've already got 2 of the ones I normally get, so it's on our webpage that I'm closed and that they need to get it in. And I've also sent to one of the incumbents that I haven't received yet and let them know that they need to do that by Thursday. So I've got that covered. We'll be doing, hopefully I will be doing a sewer billing tomorrow. Jill, you need to let me know when in June we can do the water read so we can get another billing out in this current fiscal year. And then I have a number of land records that need to be done. And we do have some applications for the clerk assistant treasurer. We're hoping to set up some interviews with myself, Anthony, and Peter next week to decide on a couple top candidates so that we can get rolling on that. Well, I think that's it for now.
Great. Thanks, Sharon. Any questions for Sharon? Okay, thank you. Do we want to call on the water department since we're going to have the open meeting anyway with the water department for updates? Is there overlap there?
No, I think updates are different than the
Okay.
budget.
All right. Jill and Cy are water operators. What have you guys been up to?
We have been turning people's water on. We have been replacing and installing new meters. We have been marking out services. We marked out services on Spring and Lawrence the week before, prior to paving that's coming. We've got 2 small repairs to do there. We've got 1 buffalo box and another curb that's actually in a paved driveway, paved over. So those will be the 2 that will probably open up and fix next week. Yes, dogs are chiming in. 4-legged frenzy. Let's see, we have the consumer confidence report that I've reviewed that I'll wrap up in the Bristol format and send to Valerie for review, but that ends up getting posted up on the website and sent out with the Q2 billing. On that note, and in response to Sharon, we could start, how about like around the 9th? And that way we can wrap up by the 15th, because we usually do around the 12th, and that gives you some time to get them out, put all the postcards together, stuff them, and still, because the CCRs have to be out prior to July 1st. Does that work for you? That's okay? All right. Cyrus, what else? We are also trying to finish up a bunch of meter tickets for meters that just don't really read any new flow. So we're hoping to get that done over the next week. We are down 1 guy for a honeymoon for the next 2 weeks. So we're going to do some of the lighter work over the next 2. Nothing too big and too diggy. Just some of the smaller tickets and other things of that sort. On the sewer side, all 3 manhole rehabs are completed. We've done 1 each week. And the 1, 2, 3, you could look at it as the 3rd or the 4th week of June. The week starting June 20th, we'll be doing that rehab at the leach field. So it'll be rebuilding the brick structure on the inside of the effluent tank to the sewer septic tanks, and then repairing the elbow in the splitter box that completely rotted out and fell out.
Okay.
So
All right.
that's, and we'll probably do a couple other projects in June as well. Just kind of looking at the weather and getting our full staff back so we can have a staff of 3 for anything that has to do with a little bit of traffic control or equipment, because it's hard to do with 2.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks, Jill and Cy. Any questions for the water operators?
Ian, you can call the meeting to order. We have a quorum.
Ooh,
Wait for me, sorry.
that's okay. I will officially call the May 23rd Select Board meeting to order. Do I have to start from the top again?
No.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Jill and Cy. We'll see you shortly. Don't go anywhere. Okay.
We just did public forum and department head reports.
Okay.
We have 2 more department head reports.
Yes.
We do?
Yes, Eric and Anthony.
Oh, thank you. Oh, Anthony's here? Wait, where's Anthony?
He
Right
just
there.
tuned in.
Oh, there he is. He just popped in. Okay. Let's do Anthony first. He's waving at us. Anthony, what's going on with the
With the office? Yeah, okay.
the office?
So I'm meeting with the auditors on Thursday to finalize the last few pieces. There's only like this much space left that is that I have left due that they still need. So that's a good thing. And then just the regular run of the mill treasurer stuff, still looking at budgeting options and budgeting software. Trying to see, like I said, still tidying up the payroll module a little bit, getting a better understanding of who, where, and what of the where everyone is pretty much, like how much time they have accrued, who's new, who's not, who's still with us. If they're not with us, what was their last day? So just trying to cross the T's, dot the I's. And then the regular run-of-the-mill treasurer's office stuff.
And we continue to work with the treasurer's office to improve and maintain the grants management process.
Yeah, that's been a large part as well.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Anthony. Any questions for Anthony? All right. Thank you. Finally, Eric Coda. I guess you're in person there, hiding at the back. The Department of Public Works.
Yeah, I'm good. Nothing, just normal routine stuff right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Eric. All right. We shall move on. Let's check my time here. 7:19. 21:48. Okay. Public hearing. Water and Sewer District Annual Meeting. Is there anything else I have to do in terms of, because it's like a meeting within a meeting, or is that just we just go on to the next item?
No, we just cover those topics for this the different subjects related to this topic, which are
Okay.
the water, the sewer,
Okay.
the ordinance. We wanted to review a little bit of the ordinance and anything else that folks have
Okay.
in mind.
All right, so yeah, to review of operating budgets, capital budgets, and upcoming projects, review recent revisions to the Bristol Water Use Ordinance, and general issues. I don't know, Val, do you want to kick this off, or do we turn it to the water operators?
I will attempt to share my screen
Okay.
we'll start first with the water ordinance.
Success.
Excellent. So this was posted to the website over the weekend, so perhaps folks had a chance to look it over. The goal is to have, well, one goal is to make sure that the revenues and the expenses are the same, because we don't want to generate a profit, and we want to make sure that the revenues bring in enough revenue to cover the necessary expenses. So it's a 2-part question. What are the necessary expenses, and then how do we raise the necessary revenue? I wonder if I don't know if I can reduce the screen size so it shows more on one, but it's hard to in this view.
You can, down on the bottom right corner, you can drag the little guy that says 100% all the way on the right. See where you see the plus sign and the 100%?
Oh yeah.
You can drag that left a little bit.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
I've never done that. Oh, well, I don't know if that'll help or hinder.
No.
That hinders. There you
It
go.
hinders. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm hoping to get a little bit more of it on the screen. And Jill took a crack at it, and she did some logical calculations of what looking at the current actual revenues and dividing them by 4 and by 3 to calculate what the projections might be. And so hers came out a little bit higher than what I suggested, and that's one's not necessarily better than the other. They're just different. I think tonight is largely for conversation. Oops, let me try to get this together here, so I can see it, because I'm working on a little itty bitty laptop. So in this scenario, that the revenue increases by 2%, but it's not an increase in tax rates. It's based on an expected increase in the revenues generated from additional customers and from probable new connections. So there's that. I think the interest and penalty are roughly the same. Actually, the interest and penalty is reduced from the previous budget. We can choose to keep that the same. If we need to increase the revenues for any reason, then there's a place we can do it. Most of the, you can see from the percentage changes, most of them are roughly the same. I think the biggest change here is electricity. And in previous years, it was budgeted at 33,000, but actuals didn't necessarily support that. And recognizing that this actual is only 83 or something percent along through, are we really going to need 33,000? So this budget suggests dropping it a little. Maybe it needs to be higher than 26, and maybe it needs to be closer to 27 or 28, but it's a question of whether we need to go to 33.
Can we go on, Peter?
Will our new pump be more efficient?
It is installed and it is more efficient. It pumps about 15 gallons a minute more.
Excellent.
And it probably does it use less electricity because it's new?
Yes, it runs 0.3 hours less per run cycle. It's for real. It's on the spreadsheets. Yep.
But that adds up though. And we also have we have the solar offset too. So, you know, that's a small percentage, but since the pump house is one of our biggest electricity hogs, I think you're right, Val. We can drop that down, and we can probably calculate what we've saved since we've been on it for a couple of years. Maybe that's also why we're seeing that drop as well. But
Ian, don't we have to pay something into that also? We pay them?
we do. It's essentially we get 98%, but we pay 90% back to them, and we save 10%. So that 10% is what we're seeing, I think, probably as it drops. And then if as we improve the pump and the system, obviously it gets more efficient, electricity use wise, and so that will continue to drop, which will be nice.
So my question then is, for expenses, if, let's say the water department's the pump house is using 40% from the solar, that shares there's 40%, let's just use that as a number. Should there be a percentage of what we have to pay back as an expense to the water department? If we're gonna show it in a revenue as expenses as a savings on electricity, shouldn't we have to also show that as an expense to pay the solar company back?
We could do it that way. I don't know how it's set up in terms of that particular contract and how we receive the electricity and those credits. I'm not sure how
it goes to the same account as the GMP power goes to. So it's all in one account now for each department. Like solar.
So Sharon, so is there a credit and an expense?
We get a separate bill from the solar company, and all the ones, the 6 or 7 that are on there, go to the same account number as the electricity usage.
So Sharon, what you're saying is presently the 26,000 we spent so far this year might be
21
or 21,791. It might be 18,000 to GMP and 3,000 we had to pay the solar company. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, something like that. I'd have to look to see what the exact split is, but
those two are, when it says electricity, that's a payment to the solar and a payment to GMP.
yes, we don't have it. The solar doesn't go to a separate account.
Okay.
Okay.
And we've got 1 month left.
Yeah.
We've got this month there's bills tonight in the warrant, and there'll be one more in June.
So basically 2 months, this month and June.
Yeah.
Well, this budget was, built up to June 30th or April 30th, right, Val? These expenses, this is what it said.
Right, correct, yeah.
So let's continue down this list. So looking at the other big jumps, we've obviously got contracted services.
I'm jumping that to $50,000 because I'm anticipating that with new connections and other projects in the hopper, that item might need to be increased.
Okay.
But I did not consult with Jill about this, but it also correlates with what she suggested.
Okay.
I don't know what, I
Also,
don't
we
know.
have the two hydrants that were purchased in this fiscal year that we're currently in need to be installed in next fiscal year. So
Yeah.
that's a part of it too, is that we haven't finished that full conversation and made that full circle about which two to replace.
And this line item not only reflects additional services requested of Bitumes beyond their basic services contract, but also additional contractors that might be requested to come in, like excavators or other specialists, in order to respond to a particular project or situation.
That shouldn't have anything to do with new installations, because that should all be borne by the
Right,
installer.
right.
Yeah, but the repairs, when somebody has an older service, then we have to do the town side, and it's 99% under the darn pavement and the sidewalks. Those are
I was just trying to be clear that it's not new services, because we don't pay for, a new service is all borne by the person applying for the service.
Correct. And we've
Jill.
improved our billing process to make sure that happens.
Jill, under line 24, meters and touchpads, we didn't put any new meters in so far in the last.
That
10
is
months?
inaccurate. I don't believe that it got billed under the correct, I think it got put into supplies instead of meters and touchpads. We certainly probably bought almost 40 meters and touchpads, and like what we would call the meter setup this year. We've probably bought 40 between July 1st of last year and June 30th of this year. We've bought lots of them. So
Right.
I just don't think that they got specifically charged to the meters and touchpads line. They're just in the supplies line. So
Is it EJ Prescott that we got those from?
Mhm.
Okay.
That probably is what makes it tricky too, is that you don't necessarily know what they are, because everything gets hyphenated and abbreviated into some kind of not
Well-
easy English word.
So that
See,
raises
that-
that raises the question of whether the supply line needs to be increased as proposed, or
That was
Yeah,
my question.
we'll have to look at the bills.
right. So in either case, whether the supply line gets decreased because of that factor, and the meters and touchpads get increased because of that factor, it should probably even out, I would think.
Jill, what is a meter or a touchpad cost roughly?
Right now,
So
an
that-
entire meter set is about $750 for
You
a,
said you bought probably 40 meters or 40 touchpads, or a combination of the two?
because we bought corner horns, we bought so a meter set is, it's the coupling at the bottom,
Quarter turn valve.
a quarter turn valve.
Roughly, you spent over $2,000 in that. We budgeted $2,000.
Oh yeah, we probably spent more like
And
10 or 15. Yeah.
I'd like that line, Valerie and Anthony and Sharon, if we could dig into deeper a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that 23.4 is really 13.4.
Yeah, because I
It
think
should be
that
10.
7 or 8 of that is hydrants,
Interesting.
probably some copper lines, some curb stops.
And all the prices on that stuff changes,
Yeah.
fluctuates a lot every
Yeah.
time you buy it.
No,
Yeah, the other big reason for the supply budget going up is we're finding that the cost of items at all of these suppliers are anywhere from like 20 to 100% higher than they were last year. And
And then you gotta wait 6 weeks.
or a year and a half. Yeah, everything is a little out of touch right now as far as the costs, but it's still, we can't just not have valves in stock. We cannot just not continue doing the repairs that need to be done. So I bumped up on purpose, knowing that doing the same amount of work next year is going to cost more, just because stuff costs more.
Mhm.
I'm not questioning that. I just was, when I saw zero at the meters and touchpads, and I know you've commented before, we've had people in here saying, you know, the meter froze and why should they have to pay for the water and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, so we must have bought some and it said zero. So
Yeah,
that's what caught my eye.
Yeah, mine too.
yeah. If you want me to decode the EJP bills, you can just send them to me and I'll look over it. Because they come in, we generally buy them in cases.
Wow. Now, we had
Last
recent
time,
installations
Phil.
of the meter sets at about somewhere between $500 and $600. What about the touchpads? Does that include the touchpad or is that separate?
If they already have an existing service, it's separate. If they have a brand new, the touchpad is part of a brand new setup. So if somebody builds a new home,
Right.
or they're putting in a brand new water service, it's a touchpad, it's a wire,
Okay.
it's the coupling at the top, the bottom, the quarter turn valve, the quarter
Backflow
horn,
preventer.
the meter, the backflow preventer. It's, $750, $800 worth of materials to put in to put in the meter set.
Mhm.
And then there's the water service on the town side, which is a curb stop, copper, the stainless steel rod. Yeah,
Corporation, you know,
corporation. Yeah, yeah. There's quite a bit. So we were talking probably.
and a wet tap. I mean, that's not a supply, but it's a
That's an
cost.
expense. Yep, that
That's a
would go under
contracted service.
contracted services. Yep, usually we'll contract to Mike McDougal or EJ Prescott because they have special insurance for if they break that pipe, that main.
So we'll come back to those figures after we have a little bit more information on these guys.
Okay.
What next? Contracted services we talked about. Building and overhead and maintenance. That was originally budgeted at $6,600. The actuals don't seem to prove that expense unless those other things, unless they're being coded to other areas. So I suggested dropping it.
Should be fine. We painted the building last year. We put new doors in the front a couple years back. There's a little bit that probably should be done with the drip thing. But I can't, at some point we'll have to replace the roof, but not right now.
Would that be a capital expense if we replace the roof?
Probably. And also it's kind of, if you're gonna upgrade to that extent, it's probably would be done if you were to do a 20-year or a 30-year rehab of your facility. You'd kind of take care of your building envelope as well at the same time.
The other question is, how much love do you want to give the building on Basin Street? Is that starting to crack up?
Oh, that's on the sewer side though. Actually, do you consider Basin Street building water and sewer? Because we do store sewer and water stuff in that building.
Really, I would assume it would be water because it's really not, there's nothing in there that has to be in there that's sewer. You could store that.
Oh, yes, there is. Yeah, there's measuring devices for the monitoring wells. There's cleaning stuff for.
Well, no, like valves in there, turn valves on or off.
There's a lot more water stuff in that building that's stored in that building. There's probably like a third of it is wastewater stuff and the other 2/3 is water. Because it's the actual
in there.
roof.
If it's sewer stuff in there, it's just for storage, not for.
In the Basin Street, not in the.
Right.
Not in the,
From the Basin Street, that's what, no.
yeah.
But it's for storage of the sewer stuff. It's not to operate the sewer system.
You are right on that. You're right.
But neither is the water stuff. It's storage only.
That is totally a storage building.
But that's also an electrical bill over there. There is lights in that building, and the wall is starting to spread. Basically, I noticed the other day, there's a crack developing on the left side of it. And I'm not sure how you guys want to address that.
It's a block building, isn't it?
Yeah.
Si. Correct? That's a block building?
Yep.
Would a storage container serve the same purpose?
Yeah,
Yeah. Does the town allow those?
they're just uglier, right?
We got one right behind Head and All.
Well, I don't know that it necessarily would have to be right there.
Right.
Right.
Interesting.
That's a good point, though. We've utilized them to build buildings before. They're actually used a lot in digester builds because you can just paint them
Move 'em.
different colors and move them and stack them, and they're quick.
Hmm.
They do generally need to be insulated if you have anything of heat in there, but this is a cold storage building, so yeah, that could work.
Interesting. How much did they cost?
They used to be like 3 or 4 grand. I don't know what they cost today.
I think a 40 footer, you're looking at about 10 grand at this point, 90, $100, something like that.
Well, that could be a
Well,
capital.
we need, that
expense.
building is nowhere near 40 feet. It isn't even 20, is it?
No.
It's probably a 20.
I think Pockets right now is selling for about 6,500 brand new ones, 20 footers.
Well, that's decent.
That would be probably a pretty cost-effective way of replacing that building. We just need to have somebody take it down.
Wow. Huh. So that would be more of a capital project.
You're right. We could use the sewer capital or the water capital. There's definitely water capital saved up more so than sewer.
One thing I noted here is that for water, the water system has over $162,000 in capital reserve funds available. The wastewater, the septic reserve fund is considerably less, and we'll get to that in a moment.
Mhm. This is on purpose, though. You guys have been saving up to be able to update your control panel,
Right.
and that's a increasingly significant expense. So, and yeah, replacing the building down at Basin Street could totally go under there.
Mm-hmm.
Jill, I saw your email today. It's possible you might get the generator before the end of the June 30th. It's
They
possible.
said it might be completed and ready to ship. However, they told us it's in Connecticut. So like, how long does it take to get something from Connecticut to Vermont for real?
Where was that coming out of?
Connecticut.
No, the money wise, at a capital reserve.
Yes, the
Come out of
remainder.
capital
So
reserve
half of it's been paid for. So the other half is coming out of that fund right there.
right here. Okay.
So moving on, I think, where were we?
And we got one more meter reading.
Yes.
They're gonna do it.
June.
in
June is
June.
quarter 2.
Yeah, which will add another to that expense or revenue.
And it'll give us an actual revenue figure for the year.
So this bond payment figure comes from my capital improvement plan document where I tried to identify and consolidate the various debt services for all different areas of the town's departments. And this is the figure I have in that spreadsheet. But obviously it differs from the theme, the thread going there. So it's something we need to clarify what that actual bond figure is.
Yeah, by looking at your amortization schedules to see when your debt is paid off. And also if and when you take on Pine Street, that doesn't roll into a bond payment to my knowledge until you complete construction and go through first year services. So it's almost like a couple of years from now before that bond hits this budget.
Yeah, it's definitely a delayed implementation. I don't know the precise schedule for that, but what you said sounds right.
Valerie, that 68,125 bond payment you've got in the yellow, you didn't get that from the bond bank for the water?
No, because it's a consolidation of other debt. So it's not just one line, but a couple or a few others. And so that's what I want to clarify.
It's a
my
bond
information.
and a note and other notes.
Correct. And that's in a different file.
And it looks like we've lowered it. It was 89 the first, and then we went to 80, and then it was 68. But we haven't paid, we
68,
apparently haven't paid it all yet this year.
Well, we need to double check those figures, but that's the ballpark. And then moving on, the capital reserve fund. This is a figure that just kind of takes all the other stuff and tries to bring that to the capital reserve fund and helps make this balance out to meet the revenues.
Yeah, and I think the biggest point this year versus all the other years where we've had an increase in rates and an increase in rates and an increase in rates is that it doesn't feel necessary this year. It looks like everything fits fine. The increased number of users, which is increasing revenue, is helping because we're already a water system. We're already doing it. We've got the water, we've got the infrastructure. So it's nice to actually have more connected users.
I would assume.
And everybody's got so many other
Year-to-date.
things costing more. They should appreciate that one bill isn't going up this year.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry, Peter, or Jill, I didn't hear what you said about water going up.
We weren't proposing any increase in the user rate this year because it doesn't make sense.
When do we figure the 20 units will be in on Firehouse Drive?
They plan to begin construction this summer, so I would say sometime fully
Early spring.
operational and next year. I would think.
Before or after July?
Oh, after, for sure.
Do you think it's gonna take more than a year to build that project before they can have
Well,
anybody?
they have to build it, occupy it, but all the water connections and stuff and that kind of thing. I really don't know. But anyway, they plan to start it in June.
Do we have enough under the revenue side for water service connections for those over there, or is that just one big connection?
They have to pay for it. They're the developer. So yes, because it's gonna
Well,
go.
I mean,
in and
it's
out.
just, you've doubled that from a 500 to 1,000, so that's, you've probably taken that into consideration.
No,
Other-
actually, we hadn't. I was thinking more of the incremental ones happening throughout the village, and yeah, there's that one that still has to come along.
And is the commercial building, are they intending to build this year?
No, supply chain problems. So they plan to start next spring.
And though under expenses, then are each one of those 20 units gonna have their own touchpad? And have
that is how they did it at
Are you building enough money there to buy all of them?
They have to pay
They're
for them.
rental units, so probably not.
But doesn't the owner have to pay for them?
But that'll come under the revenue, but then you have to take it out to buy the touchpad, right?
You're gonna have 20 meters in these new places?
are you gonna do a meter pit to this because they're a huge service, or are you gonna do individual
I think there are
meters on
three
every-
separate
I think that's up to the landlord.
Yeah,
mean-
there are three separate buildings. I don't think a meter pit has been discussed at all.
Can we as a town make recommendations?
It depends on how they're gonna bill. Whether
Right.
they're gonna make you pay for your water or whether it's gonna be included in your rent.
We'll
Is it
have to
gonna
wait
be-
and see what their application looks like.
Is it gonna be like KTP where each 40 odd trailers over there pay their thing and then KTP pays the difference when
Yeah.
it's billed out at the end of the street for leakage? Not that I would expect any new leakage over there, but what if someone doesn't pay? We're gonna have to have it, we can shut off each individual unit. If they're gonna have the individuals pay their own water bill. Right, Peter?
So
Yeah, you can't.
the
Okay.
co-housing, you had like a furnace room where you had your water come into and then disperse through the properties that way is how they did that one. I don't know what the plan is, but is there gonna be like a utility room where they come in and we place a meter and then they sprout 5 or 6 for a unit out of one building, or however many they're gonna have, or?
So the co-housing, we just send them one bill, Si?
Nope.
You have,
No, so each individual building that has more than one unit in the building, they have a meter for the individual
Housing unit.
housing units, but they're all in one location. They're not scampered throughout the whole building.
As the people that read the meters and have to go to the touchpads and find them on each home, it's very nice how co-housing was done so that the touchpads are grouped on one part of the building for each of the 7 buildings.
so if there's the big house there where there's 3 units in it, I don't know if there is 3 or 2. If one of them doesn't pay, you shut the whole unit, all 3 units off or just the
You
one?
can't.
No, just the one.
Yeah.
That's
The one
why
fee.
you get into the utility room, and turn the valve on the one service.
Okay,
Depending on how they do it, we're gonna have to make sure, because I'm guessing that this building's gonna have to be sprinklered. So,
Absolutely.
which means we can't shut the water service off. So we're gonna have to, if they're not paying off a master meter, we're gonna have to have the ability to shut each individual unit off.
Yeah, well, they came in with a main, like a 4-inch main, and then busted off inside the utility room, the 4 or 5 different units off the meter, so you can individually shut them off at the co-housing. That's how they did it.
Right, and we made arrangements with co-housing to be able to access those, because technically we can't permission. That's why the curb stops are in the right of way.
it's
Well,
different.
let's see if we can be part of this conversation regarding this construction earlier rather than later. You know, if we have a system that works well for our water operators at the co-housing, can we be in on the discussion and recommend something like that once we start to see what they're going to be doing? I mean, we have plans, you know, rough plans in terms of what's happening, but it would be great. I feel like we're always behind on some of these larger sort of things, or have been in the past. Like, let's make sure that we can connect with them and Evernorth or whoever is doing it, and try to get in there earlier to be able to make suggestions and hopefully have it go in a direction that we like.
Yeah, and another silly suggestion is not to plant a hedge where the curb stops are. I know it sounds silly, but we see that on Sprout. It was, hey, can you actually, show me where my curb stop is, mark out my water service, and there's trees all over where the curbs are, which
There's
means
shrubs.
eventually they will grow into the curbs
There's
and they won't
shrubs.
work. Yeah, they start out small and then they grow.
Okay.
I mean,
All right, so that's a good thing to know. I mean, they're going to be doing landscaping there, and I'm sure if you're not involved, something like that will happen. So let's get you guys involved if we can.
I've made a note to reach out to Evernorth tomorrow and to see if they can tell us what their water service plans are.
Great.
Joe, off the top of your head, $2,000 is not enough for meters and touchpads next year for a 20-unit housing apartment
No,
house.
I mean, it'll go in and out of that because they'll have to pay for it. I think that the meters and touchpads line should probably be $5,000 or $10,000. It's probably what that one should
That's
be.
what you spent this year when it said 0.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is that there's.
Okay.
So
Maybe
do we increase this as proportionally, recognizing that the revenues are going to offset the expenses?
They probably.
Well,
I mean,
they
half
don't-
of it.
the new ones, it doesn't offset do they don't have to pay for replacements if they fail.
If we put a new one in and they let it freeze, they have to pay for that. But if there's older meters in there that are still the little metal ones that are horrible, or they're the new ones and they just so happen to fail, then the town does cover that.
So that the only ones that will get paid for are the ones that are neglected or are new.
Valerie, you changed that to 8,000, is that, but are there's 4 buildings that are gonna go over there, those 20 units or 5?
It's 20 units, 20 units altogether, but they're going to be rental units.
But every building's only gonna be one connection, correct? Just kind of.
Well, we don't know. I would assume that they're gonna go into the building and deal with the water the same way they do over to KTP. I don't think we're gonna have to deal with each individual unit.
No.
Because it's owned by Evernorth, not.
And just one large master meter outside.
Yep.
I mean, we could also take a look and see how the apartments were done in Virgins, if we're interested, because that's a similar situation. They also have ones up in Burlington too.
You guys have an apartment building on Plank Road too.
That
And that's
has
just
one
one?
master meter and they built, I don't know how he does it.
Yeah.
I know
Okay.
there's just there.
Yep, I know there's just one touchpad.
And then the landlord takes care of it however the landlord takes care of it.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay. All right. Moving on, Val.
So if we do raise the expense line for connection fees, that raises this figure, and we'll want to raise expense figures the same amount of 4,000 somewhere.
Well, you put 10,000 from 2,000 in the meters and touchpad, so you raise that 8. Correct?
Mm,
Right.
only had-
That's
I
going to be
think
part of
you
the revenue.
You
Yeah,
could
you're
probably
off
put the
by-
revenue up to 337.
Right.
339.5. What's the top? 0. Woohoo! We're balanced.
For now.
And then reality happens.
Well, the other things we're going to come back
I mean,
to.
it is an enterprise fund, so it's different than a budget.
Right. So for now, does that look okay, except for the things we want to come back to?
Just to balance that, you change that from 10 to 6,
Yeah.
Correct.
but Jill thought it should be 10 grand. So
Mm,
But
Well, going from 2,000, well, going from 850 to 2,000 to 6.
right, but we don't have an actual yet. So I don't want to put numbers in there that we're just guessing.
Right.
Let's get the
we
actual
need
number.
that, we need that.
Team services, 2-inch meters are larger than 3/4.
And also too, aren't we gonna? Isn't the 10 offset in the revenue? We don't have that in there, right?
Yeah, she added some.
She added $4,000 there.
Mhm.
I mean, basically, we're figuring we're gonna replace 1 meter
Yeah.
on our dime. This is
Okay.
what that says.
All right. Well, we can revisit this when we have that figure, and that's
Well,
going to
we
give us a
gotta take
better
into consideration too, so if they wanted to do like a 2-inch main into one of the buildings, you have a 2-inch meter, a 2-inch meter is gonna be twice as much as a 1-inch meter. Or-
Yeah,
The 2-inch meter is $2,000. I know because I have a client that's replacing 2 of them. They're $2,000 a piece instead of
God.
350.
I guess that there's gonna be a 6-inch line into the building if it's sprinkled.
Right.
And then after the sprinkle connection, they'll take their domestic water.
They're gonna feed out 5.
So whether they do individual meters, they're paying for them. So it's money in, money out. I don't think
Right.
we really think about that as much as we have to worry about having the ones that we have to replace, we pay for. So if you figure you do a half a dozen a year, then we need money in that meter line to cover that.
I try to do more than that.
Yeah, we probably do like 20 a year.
If you do 20 at $700, that's 14,000.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we'll end up doing several of them next week, and that's in this current fiscal year. So we'll spend down some more of that supply line.
2,000 to spend.
Yeah.
Spend anything.
Yeah, you can do 2.
Uh-huh.
You can do 2, maybe 3 if you don't put touchpads in.
we already have the materials. The other thing is that some of it is that we keep a stock of materials so that when it comes time, we have what we need. And the year before, we bought all the different valves and high maxes and everything else. So it's been kind of nice to have them on the shelf and ready to rock.
It's interesting that you bought those when they were less expensive. And so we
That
paid
too.
lower fees for them. But
Oh, yeah.
but when if you get a new request for service and you have those on hand and you use those because you have them, but then they need to be replaced with the more expensive units. So
And those are the price figures that we would have is
Right.
whatever it was that we ordered from Prescott. At least then it would show the current pricing. How else would
Yeah.
you know what to charge?
Right.
Unless you did like full inventory and did some LIFO or FIFO with it.
but they're the exact same units.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's not like the other one is a lesser product because it costs a little bit less.
Same exact thing.
Okay.
Copper and brass are volatile in the markets, so they spike and drop and do weird things.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else on the
Nothing
water
goes
budget?
down. Know that.
Yeah.
I say
We're
that
allowed to
again.
dream, aren't we? Just have to dream a little bit.
A little bit.
Okay, so moving on, Val.
Okay, I'll stop here and bring up the sewer. Hang on just a second. My screen is jumping around.
I'd change your title, Jill, if we're doing sewer.
You know, it's so funny. People don't, you say, you know, what do you do for work? And I'm like, well, operate water and wastewater systems. And they're like, but what are you? I'm like, I'm a water and sewer operator. I'm a contractor.
Clean in, dirty out.
I'm a clean water person. I want it to be clean when you're drinking it and clean when it comes out of the sewer.
Right. Yep. Excellent. So the sewer budget is less demanding than the water budget, less complicated. So there's fewer items. And here again, we try to make the revenue and the expenses balance out because, as Peter said, this is an enterprise fund. So the object is not to make a profit. So again, we are proposing no rate increases. Although, let's see, I
thought I had put a rate increase in this one.
We didn't have one last
Actually,
year,
I
did we?
didn't. I never received a proposal, but I never saw your proposal.
Oh, I totally put a rate increase in this one.
Oh,
Because we're not saving enough in capital on this one.
I was worried about that too.
That was what I was thinking. Is this one, the revenues that keep going down on this one? Because you can see hold on, let me pull up my folder. I thought that didn't look quite right.
I applied the same approach that you did of the actual quarters and multiplying them by 4, and I came up with this.
This one was a little trickier, not because there's more items, but because it's not paying for itself. Was what I was seeing when I did the numbers. I just have to, I don't know if we show or you can hear me, but I've got to get on this computer because the other one with the spreadsheets won't open my files the way I need it to. Okay, here we go.
So while she's doing that, I just want to point out that the actual revenues are proposed to be the same. The actuals are less than what was budgeted, considerably. So whether rates are required to be increased, that's a good question.
Alex, you took that 39,530 and divided it by 10.
Sorry, my alarm. Sorry.
Okay, I was proposing a 5% rate increase. So what I saw,
This doesn't highlight. So
I'm taking that 39,530, Valerie, and divide it by 10, and times it by 12, and I come up with about 47,000, not 55.
that's the problem. Yeah, we're not meeting our budget at all with the rates because I think there's less usage. Is what I'm seeing. So I can do a screen share if you want to the one I put together.
okay, I'll stop this one.
I don't know.
Let me make you a co-host. Jill. Okay, you're a co-host.
Let's see. I think this is what we want. Do you see orange and green?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so this was what I saw.
Oh,
The actual was 39,530 through 5,322. So we ended up at 52,706, which is not the 55,460 that we had budgeted in our current fiscal year. So like we're not even hitting our budget. So that's why on this, I was proposing a 5% increase in billing rates to bring it to flush. So we're off by 5.2%.
okay.
Again, I think people are having a hard time financially with everything else getting more expensive. So I don't want to get crazy about it, but I do think it should at least match our previous budgets so that we can carry the lines below.
Jill, I'm off about $3,000 from what yours is. You take that 39,530 and divide it by 10. then times it by 12, then you add 5%, and I come up with just under 50,000.
It's 9 months. It's 9 months. Average monthly actual divided by 9.
I just saw it says actual through 5/3/22.
However, I had
It should
this
be
one. This is why
430.
this one took a little bit more work. Is that I had to have Sharon send me some of the back part of this to say, okay, how many billing cycles are in here? So it bills backwards for sewer. Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I do the read, like I did the read on May 11th or May 12th, do you consider that April or May?
April, because it's mid to mid.
See, it's backwards.
Mhm.
In my brain, it's backwards. So this 5/3 didn't
actually-
have April, May, or June in it.
And it's actually through April 30th.
Okay.
Oh, okay, but this was kind of like the numbers that she gave me through the,
Right. Understood.
so that was my so you're showing one less month, Joel, because you're
Because it's-
doing it divided by 10.
Because it's quarterly now.
Yeah, so if I take that 39,530 and divide it by 9, times it by 12, times that by 1.05.
Then do you get 55,341?
Yep,
Okay, that was how I worked. It was that's what we should aim for, but what we're gonna end up at is 52,706, and we're shy of what we've been aiming to hit for years. So like our usage isn't matching our billing rates to hit our revenue budget.
so with a 5% increase, you think we're gonna be around 52,706?
Yep. And that's to support the expenditures below. Now, if you don't feel that the expenditures below should be held the way that they are and you want them decreased, we could do that. We didn't increase sewer rates the last couple of years.
Well, it looks
So-
like most of them are being decreased in this proposal.
Yeah, we're trying to be a little bit more, okay, so here, admin and clerical services, we're only at 1229.
All right.
So it's like, well, let's carry some, but we don't have to carry it at 3,000 if we're only spending half.
Right.
Right.
And then this one here, it's just, I don't know what's going on with how you guys are doing your allocations of internal costs to sewer, but it feels that they're not being allocated as maybe budgeted.
Correct.
So maybe there's one less person on staff and there isn't an expenditure to allocate and therefore it's been lower. Or there's some journal entries that weren't done. I don't know. But this is like the real expenses that I see.
And Jill, can you squeeze that down a little bit so I can read the first lines, So my question is, I had the same question. If you spent 48.2% salary so far, clerical salary,
Yep.
shouldn't like a Medicaid and health insurance be the same, 48.2? That's a question for anybody that wants to answer it, I guess.
Oh, I think it's that I saw $87, but I wasn't super comfortable making this too low.
My question is, if you spent 48% of your salaries, you got to pay 48% of your Medicaid to pay those salaries, right?
This is that's the percent, you're right. So this would actually be more like 97 or 90. Nope, it goes the other way. 110. 5. Oh,
You got to go about 115.
Can you scooch it up a little higher on the screen? I can't really see it.
yeah,
Just a little bit.
like this way.
No,
This way?
magnification size
Oh,
wise.
yes, this is just, I'm on a Mac, so I just go.
Oh, a little bit lower. It's fine.
Lower.
Yeah. Okay. That helps.
Okay.
Does that work for you,
He's trying
Joel?
to say if this is gonna be down 48.2%, you know what? I could just do them at 50%. Ha! My math will work so much better that way,
Yeah, I'll have things end in zeros or fives. Jeepers.
right? 800 is 400.
That's what I just thought. If you spent 48% of your salaries, you got to put 48% of your Medicaid is based on your salaries. When I saw it was only
That's what all of it
17%.
is. Yep. How's that?
Yeah. But Cy, didn't you tell us a year or so ago, or 6-8 months ago, that was some work you wanted to do at the sewer plant? I know you took care of some hasp and locks at the doors or the
Mhm.
covers, but you had some brick and other stuff.
Oh,
Is
yeah, I've got a
Yeah.
effluent structure to rebuild, and I've got a square box to fix, and what else was there?
Yeah, so we did the three
The siphon
manholes.
tanks are like an every 5-year thing, because you do the whole switch in your fields.
And I know it's zero is not, it's gonna change here because you've been out doing the 3 manhole covers. And that's probably gonna, it's the septic tank line, correct?
Yeah, the
And
actual
if
there, the maintenance and septic tank line, yeah, that's going to increase.
And if it goes over this budget, it needs to dip into the capital budget because there may not be enough in this year's line for all of the rehabs. It just depends how much. Luckily, the line's in good shape. We thought we'd had to do the line too, and we're like,
It's plastic, it's wonderful.
yeah, like, oh God. But luckily it was just the 90 that's made out of rotted out metal.
Mm.
The line between the two structures is plastic and it's good. So,
Just FYI, it's a little over $38,000 in the capital sewer reserve fund.
okay, great. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at the septic field, you can tell that this septic system that's there is not going to last another 50 years. You probably have 10, 15, 20 more years maybe with the structures that are there. As far as like some operational parts really needing to continue to be replaced. Like he's saying, the dosing siphons, their counters haven't worked forever, which is why
Well,
we just go off the
gotta clean them
water
out
meters.
every once in a while, because they do collect some stuff.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
part of it.
So.
You got 2 bills in here tonight for $8,200 will come out of the maintenance and septic tank, so.
Yeah, we did, we redid, that's the other 2 manholes. One was right in the middle of the entryway to Shaw's, and the other one was in asphalt and concrete behind Snaps.
Yeah.
We got to do.
I saw some fly-by-night outfit fixing that last week out there.
Yeah, you caught me.
Luckily, one of them just needed a little pavement taken off the top, and they just did real quick.
This one, he had sidewalk he had to repair too.
Yeah, we've built 2 sidewalk squares this spring.
So far.
So far. Yeah, so the rest of the work in June will be the maintenance at the leach field, which are those 2 structures that need to be repaired, and several of the smaller water service issues where the tops are ripped off and other
Got a
things
bunch
of
of
that
curb
sort.
stops that are bent over.
Yep.
And they can't get into.
Yep, so people say, can you shut my water? And it says, we say, nope. It's broken and it's bent and we can't get in without digging it up. So this one is just off a little bit now, 55,037 versus 55,351. I was just taking that and kind of moving it under the, where's the capital reserve? Capital reserve fund, just moving it around in there. Because I think anytime there's extra, it should go in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree.
Or
we have-
less.
We hope that, here, I guess after tonight, $3,300 too enough. I see we haven't spent much because we've just been designing Pine Street, and that's paid for by a grant. We hope, correct?
This is sewer, so.
Oh, sewer, sorry, Peter. Disregard.
Rewind.
307, 307, 307.
No, I've,
Okay. All right. Let's, any more with this, Val?
Any questions, anything that needs to be followed up on for the next time? Because obviously we'll be continuing this to the next meeting.
Yeah.
I guess gonna ask for the ratepayers, and I'll full disclosure, the National Bank Committee, who I work for, is a user, is what would we lose if we said we're gonna look like a 3% increase in the sewer rates? Just to help them out,
Let's see.
which our bill isn't very large until, thank you, Sharon, she called me last week and we had a run.
1.05 is that. 1.03 comes down to 54,287. We lose 1,054, and so we have to take it out of our capital. So we end up going from 5805 to
Could we take 500 out of there and 500 out of the maintenance line, make that 21,000? It was 20,000 last year, or 21,100. Just a thought, not saying,
This back. Put this back up.
I mean, if you do that though, aren't you you're gonna run into trouble, given the discussion that we've had, that we're gonna surpass those numbers.
I don't know that you're going to surpass them this year, but you want to just make sure you're continuing to tuck money into here.
One
Right.
thought I had in the version that I presented a few minutes ago, and this was probably the biggest difference in these proposals, is that I had proposed reducing the maintenance and septic tank line from 20,000 plus to 15,000 because so much work is being done now, this fiscal year.
That's super dangerous because your septic tank pumping is $6,500 per pumping, and there are years where we have to pump 3 times, and that's
Okay.
it would be really dangerous
Okay.
to go that low on that line.
Okay. Never mind.
So-
Where
so
I was
with-
going with that was move the difference to the capital line. That's all.
So with regard to our pricing, Joel has often talked about our low pricing for water. How does our pricing stand with other towns that have a similar system to ours? Are we?
I've never seen the pricing structure for sewer. The state did a whole big, huge study on water rate structure. I've never seen it on sewer rate. I mean, a bazillion years ago, I did sewer rate structure, but your issue with your sewer system is that you just have 34 users.
Yeah.
There,
You know,
there is
and
a
there-
company, not only RCAP, which Jill and I are going to be meeting with tomorrow at noon or 1 o'clock. I forget what RCAP stands for, but they've worked with the town before on the small water system, and they have ability to work with us to develop not only a capital plan, but probably a right structure for the sewer system. But there's also another organization, I forget the name because it's out of the Syracuse University and University of North Carolina combined, and they put together on a number of trainings webinars on small water systems, a lot of different topics, and small sewer systems, and they provide free technical assistance to small water and sewer systems. So I think we have an opportunity to, no pun intended, tap into what they offer. I just haven't had the time to do it.
Okay. All right, let's continue.
Well, and I think that it'll be easier to know what our actuals are. And I don't know when you want to decide on these budgets, but it would technically be easier after all the months are actually of revenue are in here. You would know what you actually captured for revenue.
Asking a historical question, why are these budget discussions usually scheduled for May and early June? Given what Jill just
don't you
said
by
about
law
timing. What was that?
by statute, you have to have a budget approved by the voters, whether they show up at an annual meeting or not. 1 or 2 show up. Don't you have that approved before you start your fiscal year, Peter?
If they were approved in July, would that make a difference?
Could we pay any bills? Because we don't have any money approved yet. That's my question. Could you not pay VTOMs? Could you not pay anything? Because you haven't got a budget?
I understand.
But if it just happens to get voted down and you go into August, I think you gotta have a budget before you start your new fiscal year. Or you could only, like a school district, you could only spend 80% of your previous budget until you get a new budget approved.
But the voters will not be voting on this budget. You are, the select board / water / sewer commission.
Yeah, but if all 36 owners of Main Street show up here and just say, we can't afford it, we're gonna do something different, blah, blah, blah. I think the 5 of us will probably put our heads together and say, hey, we need to do something. Or no, sorry, go home and we're gonna pass what we wanna pass. I guess you have to listen to your constituents. And I'm not saying they're all complaining about the sewer, and I'm not against 5% either. I was just saying it's $1,000. It sounds a little better than, we raised the water rates last year 3 or 4%, maybe 5.
No, none. They haven't been raised in quite a long time, I think.
Water
I thought we
rates
raised water
have,
like-
sewer rates have not.
Or has it, water was last year, which they also pay.
Right.
And this, we're hitting them with sewer instead of water, which
Right.
I don't also. It just was a thought, don't have to decide tonight. I mean, I wouldn't mind putting the annual meeting off until the second the second Monday in June's select board meeting. So Jill maybe can read the meters on June 12th before that second Monday. And we can actually crunch the numbers real quick and put them in there and say, you know, our revenue looks good. Or it doesn't look good, or the repairs are done and we look good. A little
Well, I
more-
know, I don't know how hard we gotta think about it, but it's like, if you look at the actual for 20 to 21, it was 49. You know, it's like, you can see you're not capturing your budget. That's more of the, you're not capturing it. I don't
Which is,
know.
which is a big issue, especially because it's only going to last us another 20 years. And we
We're not
have
putting any more users on.
that's right, and we can't get more users. We're in a vicious cycle where we're losing revenue and we can't afford to keep what we have there going. And so we're adjusting the budget accordingly without raising rates or raising them in small percentages. We either have to do it where we raise it a lot, or, well, I don't know if there is an or. Do you no longer have a core sewer system? Is that a possibility?
If
What
you look
happens
at
to the
this-
34 users?
If you look at this as like $54,000 and you divide it by just evenly, 34 users, $1,588 a year for a restaurant to deal with their sewer.
Yeah,
That's
$100
not
a month.
expensive.
yeah, it's not very much.
It's not. They would be pumping their septic tank, a regular 1,000-gallon septic tank, like 4 times a year because of what those higher volume users are producing. So I don't know. There is still a scale to this that's not as bad as it would be
Yeah,
if they didn't have a public sewer. They also don't have land to put a sewer in. They're like, you know, squished up against each other with no ground.
Yeah, there's no practical alternative.
Yes,
this
I mean,
point.
this is still pretty inexpensive, given that the power bill is teeny. Everything is pretty much, this is as inexpensive as a sewer system really gets. Is
Right.
these-
Because it's not, all it is a septic system. It's not a sewer system.
Okay, if this was like a full wastewater treatment facility with a direct discharge, you can times this by 10.
Yeah.
Or 50 users. Because that's how much it costs. The amount of permitting, the amount of sampling, the amount of work that has to be done, the amount of sludge removal, the cleaning of structures, the replacement of parts as they break down mechanically, the pumps. It is so much more expensive. I see a town down south that I run, they have 180 connected users and they're $110,000 a year,
It's 100 and how many users?
160, and they're just residential, no businesses, no high fats.
Hmm.
It's like 40,000 gallons a day.
Almost 4 times his hours. Hours are 39, so that's 176. So yeah.
I mean, I think the reality is that we're going to have to keep increasing this, and I don't think we can go. I think if we say we need to do 5% or whatever, we need to do that. I don't think we can then go down to accommodate, because we're never going to make this back. There's no way we can get other money to put in here to do this.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think I agree with you, Ian. I can go back to 5. I'm, like I said, I'm not gonna sit here screaming and yelling, because that, I'd like to see more going into that capital reserve, because not that I was sold on this fellow with the green thing he was selling here a month and a half ago, the snake salesman. But
That didn't get me either, but it's just because you're
But,
basically
but what I'm
proposing.
saying is,
Yeah.
if you say to these 39 or 40 users down the street that we keep raising our rates, but we're really not doing anything to help you out later on, because the system is failing us, going to fail us, and we don't have enough. I think we got to save money. And when they say, why you got so much in reserve, because we've got to come up with an alternative.
Right, and I think it's just making it very, very clear to our small user base that this is what has to happen. It's not that we want to do this. We're not making money on this. We're doing quite the opposite, and so it's just going to continue to go up. whether it's 5% this year and whether it's 10% next year, it's just one of those things. We're trapped in this now, and we know that we have huge expenses coming down the line.
Yeah, at some point, you'll probably have to replace your entire splitter box structure. That's the next structure that would be the entire. It's just that the acidic environment that splitter box is destroying the concrete. So there'll come a point where it gets looked at and it's like, okay, the structure has to be replaced.
Do any of these items need to be engineered?
That one would probably be Camp Precast or some other precast company. It would have.
What's a splitter box cost? What would that cost in replacement?
Just a valve vault is like, for a contractor to come in and set, they charge 20 grand, and that's not the vault itself. The vault is like 5.
You're
And
probably
it would be
talking,
the vault, maybe 10, 15, and then another 5 or 10 for the contractor, maybe 25.
And then mechanicals must be.
It's not technically mechanical. It's that's true, there's valves, but they don't
Yeah.
require electricity.
Hmm.
They're
get all said
gravity
and done, you're probably
mechanical.
gonna $60,000.
That might be high, but I suppose if you had
You
to,
got 10% of it. So I make a motion, we leave it at 5% increase, then I'll change my
Yeah.
mind.
I
You
see
changed my
that as
mind in a
like the
hurry.
next.
Because if you're gonna get 10 years out of it, let's say, you'd barely have 60,000 at today's cost. If you raised it, if you just put 6,300 in your reserve.
Are we worrying too much here? Because
I mean, you just have to put some every year.
the only thing is that, like, last year we had a $16,000 surplus, which goes into the capital plan. That's, our budget numbers don't. Our revenue doesn't hit our budgeted numbers, but our expenses don't hit our budgeted numbers either.
Yeah, it's because we pumped the septic tank before the last fiscal year. And we just did the manhole rehabs in May. Because we just didn't have time in the schedule to do them last fall. So
That
that's,
29, or call it 3,000, is gonna change, it's gonna be about 11,500 now, or 11,200, because you got
Anyways.
$8,200 in the put on tonight's bills.
yep, and there'll be the septic
more.
tank pumping, which is like another 6,600. That's June 20th.
Yeah, there's
So
18.
8 and 6 is 14, so you're at 34. You're right where you were last year, or within $100 of where you were last year for your end of the year expenses. I'm just saying, are we getting too hung up on
3%?
no, are we getting too hung up on the idea
Revenues
that-
and not paying attention to expenses?
Yeah.
Like
I
you
mean,
said, the actuals,
we
the
need
actual
to-
expenses didn't measure up to the actual, revenues or budget.
We need the money in the capital fund, but there's a surplus from the previous year. There's gonna be a surplus this year, even though we don't hit our budgeted. The way it's looking right now, we've already taken in enough money to cover what we're gonna do between now and the end of the year. So the next read or the next payment will be surplus, which will end up in the capital fund. I'm not looking to take money away. I'm just saying, are we worrying too much about it?
I think we need to revisit when we have the numbers that Jill just quoted. That
by the time you
aren't
get
in
to
that
the
amount yet.
End of June and everything is in, I think you're gonna see that your maintenance budget gets hammered.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure, I'm not doubting that at all. I just
It's
saying,
just because
that,
it's finally getting done. Yeah,
there's $19,000 there right now, and we haven't done the fourth quarter yet.
yep.
Okay.
That's all,
So Jill, you said you've read May 12th? So
Right,
you
but
prob-
and that's April, but it's not in these numbers because it wasn't
Right.
calculated yet.
So you're gonna read somewhere around Monday, June 13th is a Monday. I'm just,
We're gonna
Planning a-
start the read on the 9th. We just talked about that kind of at the department head meetings. That would start the 9th so that we could get done by the 15th. So it gives Sharon time to get all the bills together and stuff them all with the card that talks about the CCR on the website. Is that July 1st requirement?
Well, where I was going with it was our second meeting in June is June 20th, Monday, June 20th.
Ooh, I see what you're thinking.
Could we have the revenue, all this filled in so we can vote on a budget that night? And we have some really good solid numbers. We'll be 2 weeks shy of revenue.
I guess the question for Sharon is that reasonable that if we finish the reader on the 15th, does that give her enough time to put together all the water and sewer bills?
The next select board meetings in June are actually the 13th and the 27th. There are 3 Mondays.
I'm sorry, yeah, you're right, Valerie.
So
It's
the
the second.
27th gives them more time.
Yeah, the 27th gives her more time.
Well, I'll be doing sewer this month. There won't be another sewer one for next
Okay.
month. It'll just be water. Because I already have my 3 months for the sewer that I need to do now.
Okay, so will it be 12 months then after that, the figure?
Should be, I believe.
Okay,
But Sharon, if you're doing sewer this month, that's up through to April? Through April or through the
Yes.
middle of May? Or through the middle
No,
of May?
it's February, March, and April.
So then you'll have 2 months, May and June, you're gonna bill sometime in July
Yeah, when we have 3 months.
or
To August.
August.
Yeah.
It seems odd to me, just looking in, because you got two months in the old fiscal year and 1 month into the new fiscal year.
mhm.
But it's that way every year, so
Yeah.
Yeah, if you all of a sudden give somebody a sewer bill off cycle.
I'm comfortable with the 5%. I'm just saying, I just think we're beating it to death when we don't really
Well,
need to.
We could just lower this line. And if something comes up and we have to hit the capital and then decide that we should increase the rates next year, then just make that decision at the time.
Then why don't we go half this year so that we only have to do half next year?
Just go 2.5,
Yeah,
5.
as a suggestion,
Oops. All right, 1.025. And then we just need minus 13 and we'll just hit this line right
oh
here.
no, we would do 2.5 again next.
Because I mean, if at this point, we've got all of the maintenance from the current engineer's report taken care of. There. That still fits 3 pumping cycles if we need them. So that's good.
But that don't do any maintenance, right?
That's 3 pumping cycles and a tiny bit of maintenance.
Okay.
Because they're like $6,600 each time. Oh, and the other thing that you guys need to understand is that the other piece is the grease trap pumping. The town pays for the exterior grease traps to be pumps, and that goes in here too. And those are like $300 per tank per quarter. So that's another pretty decent sized expense.
That doesn't get passed on to the grease trap?
Nope, the interior grease traps are done by the owners of the building individually, and the exterior grease traps are done by the town's sewer system.
The exterior grease trap is at the beginning of the end of the system, correct? Not at the end of outside in Shaw's parking lot or outside Covers Restaurant
Yeah,
or Snaps.
it is.
Where are they?
So there's one at Snaps, there's one at Covers, and
Their grease, I think they ought to be billed for it.
if you did that, it would take some of the maintenance, that would take some of the expense out of this maintenance and septic tank. Because that's where those grease traps land.
I don't think Darcy's Saloon or the National Bank of Middlebury or Kimball's Office Supply create a lot of grease. I don't see why they should be putting that budget when it's the grease that comes out of that restaurant.
Well, you'd have to change.
Unless Darcy's putting a lot in somebody's hair, maybe Ian's or people.
Yeah, you just have to change your ordinance because it's written in the ordinance that way.
Where do I?
I mean, it assures us that they get pumped.
Right.
They will destroy your leach field.
Which was the issue before. That's sort of why we do that, because it's our system, and if we're relying on other people to make sure the system doesn't fail or doesn't have issues.
We're back to that issue that we had. Peekers mentioned about how Cy going to plug up the sewer pipe when if they don't pay their sewer bill, but they pay their water bill, how are we going to get the money? Remember that discussion we
Yeah.
had about a year ago?
Okay, so we're well over an hour into this now.
Yeah.
Let's do a
we
time
probably
check and let's
killed a lot
move
of your
on if we
night.
can, if we're all set with this.
Yep.
'Cause
Is
we
there
gotta-
anything else on the agenda for water? I think there was one more piece, right?
Both
Only,
operating budgets, capital budgets, and upcoming projects. And then there was also the water use ordinance talking about that.
Oh, okay. We'll hang
that
out. We'll
that
just
can be
mute
very
ourselves.
brief.
Okay, Val?
Yeah, let's see. Let's see. Too many screens open. So I'm gonna stop. Jill, can you stop sharing your screen? Some other button.
Here, I'll get it.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Yikes. What power. So just wanted to remind people, viewers, attendees, that water ordinance, completely new, actually, water ordinance, not just updated, but restructured and a lot of new stuff in it. I just want to quickly review that there are new regulations for applications for service. There are more details about what the installation of the water service needs to be, construction specifications, although those still need to be more information provided there. There's more information about enforcement, fire hydrants, sprinkler systems, town responsibilities, and limitations of liabilities, and a lot of some other miscellaneous kinds of things. But the application process is pretty important, and we emphasize that the water operator needs to be contacted at least 48 hours in advance of any adjustment or connection to the water system, and also that there needs to be a permit process and approval process for any work in the roadway, from whether it's anything involved in the roadway related to a water service, a repair, new connection. There needs to be approval for work in the roadway. So anyway, I won't make you dizzy by scrolling through this whole thing, but just to point out that those things are there, that the ordinance is reorganized. So if primarily, it's largely reorganized. So things that were in one section in the old ordinance might be in a different place in this ordinance. So that's a quick overview without making
No,
it
I hate to be.
So this update from the October 2021, you're saying?
no, that's the
Or
October
is-
25 or 21. Yeah, October 21.
Okay. So it's not something
Right.
we've done since then.
No,
That's
it's
what
just-
was changed.
No,
Okay.
but it was a pretty big change, and
Yeah.
many customers and viewers might not be aware of it. Even though we publicized it in a lot of different ways, it was posted in all the proper places, and we provided direct copies to a lot of people. I'm sure there are many folks who still need to become aware of it.
And that document is on the town website.
Mhm.
They can go to documents, forms, and under water and sewer. It's the first link on the website in that section.
And it might also be in an ordinance section on the website.
Valerie, a question I still have is, I'll take my brother's old property up on North Street. You said about they have to notify them if they're gonna hook up to a curb stop or anything like that, hook up to the water supply. That lot's, I'm gonna say 100 feet deep, and they've got the house built, and they run all the way out to within 20 feet of the road. And then they call Cy and Jill and say, we need to be hooked up. Doesn't say anything about what's gotta be in the ground. Do our operators gotta see it all the way to the house? Doesn't say that. They could still put plastic in like they did up here, Robert Fuller's did, without tracer wire. Do we have it in our ordinance from the meter to the main, if it's going to be
It's gotta
anything
be
but copper?
inspected. It's all gotta be inspected.
Does it say that? Because
Yes.
inspected from the meter in the house to the main has to be inspected before it can be buried, like a sewer system. You know, you build a mound system and you cover it with the engineer, he'll say, uncover it, I gotta see the pipes. I just want to make sure it says that. Does
Yeah.
it?
GMP does the same thing for underground. It has to be inspected before they can bury it.
I don't like the word shall be.
That's what it is.
Shall
Shall is means it must.
Right.
like to put word must in there, then must be installed.
That would be, yeah. Yeah. So that's under the construction specifications section.
His question, I haven't seen his question about inspection.
No, it doesn't, I don't see that it says it has to be inspected either.
Yeah. Oops, I can't see it.
What's in appendix C?
After installation, inspection, testing, approval by the town, and any all in shall become. What section is that?
To me, a water line installed is put in the ground and buried. It's all installed. Then it can be inspected. What can you expect? You can't tell whether there's 4 inches of sand under it or 12 over it or.
So this is in an early section of the ordinance.
I just like somewhere to say no water line from the main to the meter can be buried can be covered. Piping can be covered, tracer wire can be covered until inspected by the town's authorization.
Well, we've got, so 4.09, an installer, owner, or user shall not install any tap or service line or any service connection or any unless the water operator or its agent is present to observe and inspect the work. If work on or an installation of a service line or service connection occurs without the water operator being present to observe and inspect the work of the water operator, may exercise in sole discretion, may require completed work to be uncovered for examination and inspection at the owner or user's sole expense. So that's what you're asking.
That's what you're asking.
That's what I'm asking then. Okay.
Yeah, so we put that in. I mean, it's, Joel, we obviously had this discussion many, many months ago, and you brought that up, and I think it was worked in. And it seems like it's under 4.10.
Yeah,
that seems to cover everything that you were asking, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Excellent. Okay.
So that was all I had on a quick overview of the updated ordinance.
Okay. Anything else in terms of the annual meeting?
Other subjects, other concerns?
I guess for later, I'd like to talk about Alan's old report from a couple of years ago when we had a lot of 1905 stuff in the ground, and it ain't been out of there yet. And the way Pine Street's been going, I've been on the board now 12, 13 years, going on 13, and we still ain't put anything in the ground, and we were going to do it then. The way we're going, it's going to be 150 years before we get if we only do one street every 12, 15 years, we won't be done for another 100.
Well, the next agenda item, well, not the next, but the next after the next agenda item will hopefully move us closer to that goal.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on. Under regular business, 1, consider requests by MAUSD board that a few select board members join them at their May 24th meeting to discuss Bristol candidates for the vacant board seat.
Hopefully folks had a chance to review the communications from the MAUSD board about the vacancy created by one of Dave Sharp's resignation. So it's up to them to select, to make the appointment, but they want input from the select board.
Are they interviewing people then? Is that what the deal is? Or
You
they
know
just
what
want
I know
input?
based upon their communications.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're interviewing people because part of the requirement was having a select board there to make decisions, but I don't know. Val recommended that we didn't do that.
Not a
Can't
quorum.
have three.
No more than 3. No more than 2.
Well, I've got umpire in Milton tomorrow, so can't go.
And I have the ARPA focus group meeting for the businesses tomorrow, so I'm unable to go. Peeker, or is Michelle, did she ever join us?
Not yet.
No. Okay.
Darla's on vacation. Let's send her.
By Zoom.
So
So
where,
that leaves
where-
Michelle or Peeker
when is it? It's tomorrow night.
tomorrow night.
6:30, I think.
Is that a yes?
I want time and where it is, and then I'll tell you whether it's a yes or no.
It said the location in one of those emails.
But I those right at the moment.
Let me see if I can find them bigger. I couldn't see them either.
It's at Mount Abe at
6 p.m.
6 p.m. in the large cafe.
Yeah.
All right. I'll take the hit.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Peeker.
Yeah, don't thank me yet.
And we'll see if Michelle might also be willing to go and
Yes.
able.
And since she's not here this evening, let's make sure she does that. All right. Thank you both. Moving on. Consider request by Tom Wells to establish a grace period for late property tax payments.
Earlier today, I forwarded to the select board and posted to the website the response from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns advising us that it does such a thing would require voter approval and it's not up to the select board. Although the select board could choose to place it on a ballot or leave it up to petition or other purposes or other mechanisms to put it on a ballot.
So my personal feeling on this is if you create a grace period, all you're doing is extending the due date for the taxes. So if we want to create a grace period, we move the due date back to the 5th and we give them a 10-day grace period to pay by the 15th. It keeps it just the way it is. I mean, all a grace period does is extend it. There's no way of, I mean, if it's due on the 15th, it's due on the 15th. I don't know how else to say it. You know, if we give a 5-day grace period, then they're due on the 20th. Am I not making any sense? I hate it when I say something and the room goes silent.
No, I know that same 2 years ago. My wife and I told her, I said, yeah, she said, the taxes been paid. She said, yeah. She says, I got a check all ready to go, mail out. But she thought I was talking about the federal on April 15th and they were due what, April 5th here?
Yeah.
And I paid the fine. April 10th is April 10th or April 5th, whatever it is. I wouldn't be opposed. We discussed this when preparing the town warning if we want to put it on there. But we move it back like Peeker says. They're due on the 1st and then with 10-day grace period or 5-day grace period, whatever. But the mail is the mail. We can't stop that. So what if they mail in from Germany or Ukraine or Russia or wherever they're staying and they're 25 days?
Well,
I'll tell you, we
Sharon-
got a check today. It was mailed April 11th and it just came today. So this person has already repaid their taxes and paid the late fee because the check hadn't shown up here yet.
There's no sense in having a deadline if you're gonna have
Keep
a
extending.
grace period, if you're gonna keep extending it.
But it's not, the grace period is there for mail. It's not there for walking downtown and delivering it in person. And I understand, I mean, if that person mailed it in April, or what did you say it was, Sharon? How late or how long ago did they send it?
They sent it April 11th. 4 days before it was due.
Okay.
We just received it today.
Yeah.
So let's play out that. Picker says we'll add 10 days, so if they're due on the 15th, we're gonna say they're due on the 5th, and you've got 10 days to pay them, so I mail mine, I don't have the money on the 5th, but I have it on the 12th, and I mail it from my house on Pine Street. I deliver it to the post office and it comes over here the next day. I'm taking advantage of something where it's not, should I?
Well,
Right.
unfortunately, they don't get
Or-
immediate, they don't
so-
keep the mail for Bristol here anymore. It
That's
goes
right.
to a processing center and then comes back. So your check might take a week and a half to get back here.
So can we, so if we did a grace period to accept postmark,
Yes. I
Is that-
like that.
getting out of what you're saying, Ian.
Yes, I think something like that needs to be looked at, and I know it's not our decision, but I do think it's something we should revisit, because I think I mean, yes, if you're mailing it on the 15th, I think that's a little bit off. But if you've mailed it a week before, or 10 days, or 15 days before, and it doesn't get there, or it gets there but it's 15 days later, that you mailed it properly, expecting it to be there, and I know it's not our fault that the USPS is slowly having issues. But I do think that having it be a postmark accommodates more people and allows for things like this not to happen, and so people don't have to pay a late fee. But again, this is something, as Joel said, we revisit this and decide at a later date whether to put it on the ballot. But I do think buy a postmark would be a nice thing to have to help taxpayers in this town.
I think you're
Did
going
I
backwards.
misread the thing from VLCT? Because I thought it could be a floor vote.
Yeah, it has to be a voter vote.
A floor vote, though.
It's not a select board vote unless you decide to, well,
Oh,
what did it say?
town
We're
meeting.
using the term ballot, but it means
Yeah.
warning.
Okay.
We mean warning.
On an article at Reddit town meeting voice vote, that's what Picker's asking. versus
Right,
up-
yes, yes.
To me, I'd rather have it a ballot vote.
Unless we're back to all Australian ballot for everything, then it would be a ballot vote. But if we're back to the floor vote, then yes, it would be a floor vote.
Okay.
Or an item on the warning.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on this?
So back to my question is, somebody could mail it, know they're gonna be late, but I can mail it 10 days from Pine Street. But I'm not overseas. I'm taking advantage of the system by 10
You
days.
still have to mail it before the deadline. It
That's
has
right.
to be postmarked before the
Has
deadline.
to be postmarked by
Yes.
August.
I think that's what,
That's what-
I can live with the post, because that's the way the federal government works. For your income tax, it has to be postmarked.
Midnight, April 15th. Yeah, I
Right,
can live with
so
that.
I can live with that. What I was thinking was they were asking for a grace period to bring it in, and I'm not in favor of that.
No, I don't think that's what Tom was asking you for. It's just that it was mailed out on time, but it just didn't arrive on time, unfortunately. And Sharon's right, but depending on the post office, some things don't go up there if there's a large amount of them, or you can ask specifically, but it's only if it's like a bulk kind of email to the town. Anything else goes out, comes back, and now we don't, because of the sort of USPS and what's happening with them and their workforce. I think it's you just don't know how long stuff's going to take anymore. It used to be much more reliable, but yeah. Okay, well let's revisit this at a later date, and I think by postmark, similar to the federal government, I think that's a way forward that we could propose for the voters.
But
Okay.
you can order on have it in 2 days.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Okay, moving on. Consider new contract from VTM Engineering for the DWSRF Step 2 loan for the Pine Street water line replacement project.
Correct. Hopefully folks had a chance to glance through all 64 pages of the contract. I can summarize by letting you know that it's practically identical to the contract that was signed executed with Green Mountain Engineering a few years ago for the same type of project. Theirs was for the preliminary engineering. This is for the next step. So some of the stuff that was completed in the preliminary engineering phase was crossed out of this project or this proposal. The main difference is that the loan amount is increased. Let's see, by if I read this right, by about $7,700. Anyway, the total loan amount is a little over $19,000 to complete this work, and that includes, or that takes into account funds already expended from the previous contract and the funds that remain from the previous contract to get this work done. So there will be some redundant activities that this contract accounts for. The loan program has agreed that those are reimbursable through the loan program. So hopefully, the loan program will, hopefully all of this will be 100% reimbursed, but we won't know that until later in the process. And Jill or Steve can probably pipe in with more information.
I guess I have a question, Valerie, is how much we'd heard from before Alan went south on us, we were 75, 80, 85% completion. Where are we at with that?
About
I know he's working on drainage.
About $21,256 of that original contract, let's see, was spent to get the final design plans to where they are, leaving $12,000 available from the Green Mountain Engineering budget. I don't know if that answered your question, but
No.
His question is, how far along are we on the design?
I think unless Steve pops in, I can answer it for you guys a bit. I believe that the drawings were close to 100% complete, but Steve has to stamp them with his stamp. So he needs to review them, put his stamp on all the drawings. So go through in CAD and just change all of the title blocks, put his stamp on everything, and then he has to actually write all the specifications and put those under his name, and that those words are truly his design, that he puts his stamp and his insurance on. So to utilize the existing 12,000 that hadn't yet been spent by Green Mountain Engineering, and then increase the other 7,700 for him to basically write an entire set of specifications, which is, if you've ever seen them, they're 16 divisions, they're about this thick, and they're required by the state when you use their funding. So I've seen engineering fees. I think what's being asked for is quite reasonable. And I think the bigger part of this is that you guys have a project of about $1 million that you're currently eligible for very good funding that may or may not have to be paid back at whatever rate it might be paid back at. And the state refuses to make a decision as to whether or not your project still fits in the current year if you don't move ahead. So they're kind of saying, we will not give you a final eligibility on the current SRF program for you to do this next year unless you show us that you're going to be finished in the next month or two.
I make a motion that we accept the increase and sign with Steve. That's not a problem. I know Alan met with Jackman's Bristol's owner about water and trying to get the drainage on Pine Street to put in with the project, or I know different payment, but if we're gonna dig over there, we're gonna do it all. And I was wondering where that stood. Maybe Steve can answer that.
yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Hey there, everybody. Hey, sorry, my video's not on. My booster isn't boosting. So in any case, yeah, I can. Listen, I did the water design. Alan did the stormwater design. So I have reviewed the stormwater design. And I've talked to Alan about it to some degree as well. And it looks fairly complete with the exception of, the easements and things that are needed. The water and stormwater, realize you've got separate funding mechanisms here. So specific, the contract that Valerie's talking about is specific to DWSRF. So the water system itself. And what I told Valerie and, you know, which I'm glad to repeat for you folks is I'm happy to finish this for whatever Alan had left in the budget. However, the state's come to us at this point and said, okay, some of the things that were submitted in November, they don't believe were submitted correctly. Alan weighed in on that, and he had a very detailed timeline with emails, who we spoke with, when it was done. I believe Alan, based on that, submitted it correctly. They've had a complete turnover at the state in terms of personnel from the top down. You know, I've talked a bit to Jill and to Valerie, and I think at this point, it's easier to go along to get along than it is to try to fight these folks. We need them on our side to get through a whole bunch of hoops that we need to get through for the funding. And I think it's easier. I realize there's some redundant services because of this. I think it's easier, honestly, to do the redundant services and just do what they're asking us to do. So that's the only reason there was an additional $7,700. If they had accepted everything Alan submitted, and honestly, again, I think he did it correctly, but they're going to consider all of this eligible, and they're going to allow you to roll this into the project, and they're probably going to give you quite a bit of loan forgiveness on this. So it's not, I don't like it any more than anybody else does, but at the end of the day, we need a way to move this forward.
Okay.
So
Thank you, Steve.
in terms of this, in terms of the stormwater, to answer the question that was asked, I think you're pretty close to 100% design. I think you got to sort out at this point how you're going to fund it.
Okay.
So
All
Joe
righty.
made the motion, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just real quick, Steve,
Yeah.
out of your left pocket, if this thing was approved by August 1st, what's the possibility of getting any bid, or how long will this project take?
Are we talking water only at the moment?
Water only.
So we're not going to be the holdup. I think the state review at this point is going to be the holdup. I'm going to try to have our stuff submitted this coming month. Well, let me rephrase that. Assuming the state gets back to us and reviews this contract and they okay it, believe it or not, we've got to submit, even though the contract is between VTM and the town, because you're using state and federal funding, they're going to want to review the contract. So, you know, you've got two people right now that are running over 100 projects, and that's the holdup. So the sooner we can get this in, the better. And from an overall, and I heard some of this conversation a little bit earlier, from an overall project perspective, from a schedule perspective, if we can get this out to bid near the end of the year or even into the early part of 2023, it'll allow you to bid things over the winter. You know, Jill touched on it earlier. The wait times right now on materials are absolutely astronomical. So anywhere for 3 to 6 months to get materials, and everything here has to be, it has to meet the Made in America requirements. So all of your hydrants that are steel, all your valves, anything else that may have any type of metal in them. And the problem is the wait times are huge. So if we miss the window, if we miss the winter window to bid this, you're probably into 2024 before this gets built. I'm just being honest. And I hope that doesn't happen, but the issue is going to be the state and how quickly they'll review this. The holdup is not going to be the
Is this from start to finish, first shovel in the ground to the last mulch and seeded done, 3-month project?
I don't think, honestly, the construction timeline is more than 90 days. I think it's the approval timeline that's going to kill us.
Well,
So-
we worked our butts off, and all of us here on the screen here tonight, and kept at the state, and we got approval and, you know, putting out to bid by January 1, early January, with a start date of, I see they started in Middlebury, April 11th, night work, and not that it needs to be night work here.
Yep.
But maybe we could do this the first part of spring of 2023 into maybe early July, August, and be done.
Yeah.
We need to factor in if a bond vote's going to be required.
It will be.
So then that's something we put on our plate in November to start talking about for town meeting, March at town meeting. and have it
Yeah,
Or
voted.
maybe the November election.
Or maybe the November election, if we have our
Right.
numbers at least.
They're not gonna allow us to release the bid until you've got a bond approval from the voters, so.
Or maybe if we got approval by the state from in early September, October, 30 days before November 1st or November 4th.
Right.
General election, maybe we could bond vote then, Valerie.
Yeah, and I could, you know, as a suggestion, get together with Jill and Valerie and see if we can back our way into a schedule with that in mind. And something that we can present to you folks. You know, I did put some money in here. I know Alan kind of got up against a timeline at the end, and they didn't really get a chance to sit down with a select, or he didn't, with a select board and with Jill. And I would propose to sit down with Jill and Cyrus separately as well and have those guys go through the design. That I don't believe has happened yet. And I think that's critical to get all of those little details worked out that they want to see and make sure we incorporate. It's a lot cheaper to do it now than it is to try to make changes in the field after this thing's already bid.
Okay. Yeah.
Steve, does the proposed budget or in the contract account for your time for that?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So, and that's part of the $7,700. And I added 4 hours in here to Valerie, assuming that this is something you want to do, present the entire design to the select board next month. And we can sit down and go through it. And folks can ask questions, and hopefully you and I and Joe can put together a schedule or proposed schedule, you know, from beginning to end. And I think we kind of need to back our way into that with the bond vote timing considerations, and also how long this is going to take to bid, and probably have, you know, assign a pretty good timeline for purchase of materials.
Ellen did meet with the select board a while back and did go through all the panels from one end to the other
Okay.
from a general way. I don't know if this would be much different than that.
We certainly don't need to do that. And if you folks are comfortable with it, we can send it out electronically and everybody can take a look at it if that's easier, and you know, whatever you want to do. And remember, this is a time and materials not to exceed budget. So if we don't use the money, we don't use the money.
So this is a question to the select board, looking back at when Alan made his presentation about the water line and he went from North Street to Liberty Street, and he kind of summarized the different matters along those lines, including some of the stormwater issues. As select board members, do you feel you need to see more than that at this point? Or what else would you want to see beyond that? Is a question.
I don't need to see any more than that, I guess. I mean, I met with a few property owners with Alan about the stormwater, how we're gonna tackle that. That's what he said, where he's basically 95% of the water was done, drawings. Trying to fit the stormwater with it.
I mean, I personally, I could look at the plans and know what they meant, but I think if Jill and Cy go through them and are happy with them, I don't see any need for us to look at them, because quite frankly, do we even know what we're looking at? No, I'm being serious. I mean,
And especially on a small screen and whatnot, you know, what are you really seeing?
Yeah. I mean, I'll definitely look at them when they're done. If I have any questions, I'll raise them, but I just don't. I don't see the need for a presentation to us as a board.
And I know Alan had.
Yeah.
Question, Steve, who's going to bring to the board that he discussed with me as a representative of water, was when he gets to the corner of Liberty and Pine to go down to the town barn, i.e. maybe a new one, maybe not, and to service the 3 or 4 houses there on that little stretch, whether that was going to be a 2-inch or a 4-inch line going from that down from the corner of Liberty and Pine, headed west towards the town barn. And he was working that out. So. And I don't know what was in the drawings.
Yeah, we don't know. I guess I don't know what was finally decided on that question, because it might have related to the hydraulic analysis that would have needed to be done.
Well, I think it was somewhat, if we build a new town barn there, it's a big if, was it going to be sprinklered?
Right.
Then it's going to be sprinklered, it'd probably have to be a minimum of 4-inch going down it, or an 8 going down that street.
Well, it's just, Joel, it was just not the 3 or 4 houses. The ones on Lawson Lane have to connect in as well.
Right,
Because that was part of the agreement, so.
correct.
I
Okay.
have a question. If we have the bond vote, Steve, you said something about the state won't let out the bid. But if we have to do a bond, don't we have to have numbers in order to figure out what the bond is?
Yes. So part of my task early on, when Jill and Si and I go through the design and we feel like it's basically 100%, and we're pretty close now. I'm going to go through and do material takeoffs and provide another opinion of probable cost. Alan did some of this last year. I'm sure material prices have increased substantially. So we'll go through and we'll take a look at that again.
It's an estimated cost. It's not a bid cost.
That's right.
So, all right,
So
so
we-
when we do the bond, we'll do something like not to exceed type of thing?
We usually put a contingency in the cost estimates. And I usually get together with the manufacturers. So of all the major materials, and we'll go through piping and valves and hydrants and things that are fairly expensive. And I kind of look at it from 2 different ways. I've got a whole bunch of projects that we've bid and done in the past that I compare them to. However, you recognize that both material costs and labor costs have gone up considerably in the last 18 months. So I also like to get together with the manufacturers and say, okay, here were our material costs 18 months ago in terms of a per foot cost. Where are we at today? So I can factor that in and kind of look at this from 2 different directions.
Okay.
And that's what we did with West Street, and we came in under what we had allotted for a bond, and if we don't spend it, we don't spend it.
Right. It's always the goal.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on. So we have a motion and a second in terms of approving this contract. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. All those against, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. And thank you, Steve and Jill and Cyrus.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, moving
Welcome
on.
to enjoy the rest of your evening elsewhere.
That's right. Thank you, everyone. Item 4, discussion on IT hardware / networking updates to the town office and additional Zoom licenses. Part of my technology IT plan is to sort of evaluate the hardware and the networking in the town offices. This is related to maybe using ARPA funds to improve some of those things. Discussion happened earlier this afternoon with town employees, and some of the suggestions were technology based. So I definitely feel there's a need, not just myself, but other people are recognizing that it'd be nice to have some of these updates. I had Chris Merchant from Waitsfield Telecom come in and do some testing. We updated the networking so it was gigabit because we have fiber to the building, but we're not seeing the speeds in the town offices. So a little bit more investigating needs to be done, but it's sort of a quarter of the speed. I think it's related to the firewall hardware unit that Dominion Tech has put in maybe 3 years ago now. That seems to be making the speeds in the offices much slower than what we currently have. So maybe we need to talk to Dominion Tech about that. Chris also presented what Waitsfield Telecom would recommend for hardware. And I don't know, at this point, I'm not eager to spend more money, but it might be something that we revisit down the line. The hardware that he's recommending is something that I'm familiar with for my business. I use it and it's very good and it's very easy to manage. One of the nice things about it is that there doesn't seem to be any additional money that you need to spend subscription based for updates. One of the things that came in March was an $1,100 invoice that was paid, and this was for another 3-year extension for the firewall unit hardware. So that was something that we didn't budget for, that we didn't know about, that just appeared. So I have concerns about that. Val has talked about, having price increases or additional money being spent for technology. And this is one of the cases where it came in and no one knew about it and we just paid it. So we're already having that, and I'm trying to prevent that. So I don't know if we can revisit the Dominion Tech and that invoice. It's probably passed now, which is a shame since we didn't know anything about it. I'm trying to find out more information.
When we first signed up with Dominion Tech, we did have this 3-year license with Sophos, which is some sort of firewall kind of thing.
Yep.
We knew, so the fact that it was a 3-year invoice should have alerted us that we needed to renew it in 3 years, but it just slipped off everybody's radar.
Okay. I mean, would we have gone with them given that? It wasn't, looking at the contracts, it's not very clear. It says 3 years, but we don't know what happens if we didn't pay that. Does that piece of hardware not work? Like, we need to ask more questions, I think, about that.
And Sophos is an antivirus software. It's not.
Well, they also do hardware too, and it's a
Okay,
firewall
okay, I was gonna say,
prevention.
I
But
was only aware of software.
the fact that we have to pay $1,100 to just get firmware updates and to keep it updated seems a little bit strange to me. And so much of it you can sort of accomplish with other kinds of hardware or even software. Even the Microsoft Office 365 has that kind of capability built into it as well, as do all of the town's Windows computers. So I don't know. And Chris, when we talked to Chris Mercer, when we talked to him, when he came into the office, he sort of questioned that too, the need for that kind of device to be put into the town network. Do we actually need that? So he didn't think we did, and he has some pretty decent experience. We could also, the quote that he gave for this other kind of hardware would definitely get us where we needed to go. You'd have, a great speed increase, and it would be very easy to manage. We could also buy those pieces individually outside of Waitsfield Telecom doing it and manage it ourselves. So we have some options there. But since we have this additional 3 years, we definitely want to catch it before we have to renew again. And I know that there's been discussion that we might want to move away from Dominion Tech and look at other suppliers for this kind of service, just because we might want to just a change and look at things in a different way. So I've been working on that. Part of this is also trying to get a handle on better management of Zoom. We only have a single license. I've recommended that we get a couple more. And I don't know, I've suggested that we get that, but now I'm talking at it at the select board level. I'm not sure, Val, it seems like you don't see the value in getting a couple more licenses, and you're concerned about the money. So I don't know where to go from here
I wasn't questioning the value. I was questioning if there was an alternative, if they had an alternative package. That was my only question.
Okay.
And you said no.
What is,
Kind of like a site license, you mean?
Yeah, like multiple users, you get a reduction or whatever, a different package.
I know our office has Zoom licenses, and we've had to buy individual licenses, and we try to keep it to a minimum, but there are like 5 or 10 people who have to have licenses that need it all the time. And they don't have a site license.
Yeah.
what,
It's just a question.
what is the reasoning for more? What are we not accomplishing with what we have?
We have one, and you can use it on 2 machines at the same time. Like right now, I think Val is logged into it as Town of Bristol, and you guys at the town are at Town of Bristol. The trouble is that there have been a number of occasions with meetings that if you're running one meeting and someone else tries to use the town account, because about 30 different people have the login now, it will kick you off a meeting. And it's happened during meetings. And so buying the additional license, and I think we should get an additional 2, they're $150 a year. It's not a lot of money. We pay for the cloud recording, and that's become very useful. And I seem to be managing that now. Neat is doing a lot of different things, and Sean is available when he can be, but there are so many different events now with school and with other things and other select boards and other towns that it seems to be falling on me to sort of record and send it to Mary, which is fine. Like I want to have recordings of the meetings. I think it's important, and Zoom provides that. Having the other licenses just allows us to have a little bit more flexibility and not run into the issues. And also, I want to get it organized more. If I go into the Zoom and I want to get a meeting, oftentimes, for whatever reason, I'm not seeing it. So I think more licenses is going to help us organize, and I want to get better etiquette of how we create meetings, and so everything is under there, and so we know what's going on. Because we're running into meetings where we don't really know how many meetings have been scheduled and when and where, and we're sort of, stuff is overlapping.
Have we looked into Teams at all? I know the state uses Teams, because every time I go to a meeting there, I don't know the difference. I'm just asking the question.
Right. It's another service. We actually get it through the Office 365. I think it's part of that package. I haven't looked into that in detail. We could move away from one platform to another. Zoom has been pretty good. It's fairly inexpensive, and I don't know if we would have to sort of relearn and reorganize ourselves in terms of using the Teams. So the extra cost is, we pay $450 for 3 licenses. My recommendation that Val would have one, and that would be meetings in terms of select board, as well as maybe the ARPA meetings. Chris would have one for development review and planning, since those are set meetings that are considered the most important and most active for the town. And then you'd have the single town account, which we currently have, and that would be for everything else and all the other meetings. Committee members for our various committees, they have the logins. The chairs sort of run those meetings now.
Like
we've
the
also had issues where
group.
Right, we don't know who's starting a meeting. If Val starts it because it's been created under the town of Bristol, if she starts it at home and then someone starts it in a meeting right now, at the town offices, it kicks her off. It stops the meeting, and I don't think we need to deal with that. I think getting a couple additional licenses for a very minimal cost would help us greatly, and we'd be able to organize a bit better, get the recordings all set, and do what we need to do. And you can connect. You'd add 2 more licenses. You'd add it to those 2 users, and it's all the recordings are in the same place. They all use the same cloud function. It's all there, and you can organize your meetings as well.
Would they all go to the same cloud location?
Yes. Yeah, because you become, right now you and Chris are in there just as a basic user. You're not as a licensed user. The minute you become a licensed user, everything is connected, and then you can, those recordings. So when you hit cloud, and if you started the meeting under Valerie's account and you record to the cloud, it goes to the one that we pay for, which is nice.
Ian, walk me through this. So really, there only can be 2 meetings a night under what we have presently?
Well, not even really. Like right now, if another meeting happened to be scheduled for this time, and someone logged into the town account because we only have 1 license, it would pop up and say, "Hey, there's another meeting in progress." That person, whoever it might be, might think, "Oh, I don't think there's a meeting in progress right now." And if they started it, it would stop our meeting immediately. And it's happened in one of the ARPA focus groups. By chance, there was a hub meeting, and Alex started the meeting not knowing that we had the ARPA meeting, and it completely stopped the meeting. And we
It
had to
also
scramble.
happened with us during a select board meeting on an off night, which was Thursday night, and you had another meeting to go to, and you thought
That's
that
right.
could happen at the same time, and that's when we learned
Yes.
through experience that no, signing onto the one turns the other one off. So we
Yeah.
didn't actually have any recording for that select board meeting that night.
Right, and I wouldn't worry if we had just a few meetings like select board or planning, but we seem to be doing so many more committees are using them. The fire department uses them for their numerous meetings.
They had a meeting tonight on solar panels, and
Right.
they invited others to join in.
Right.
Tonight.
So we could do that. I mean, it could be separate, because my thinking is for the select board and maybe the ARPA committee meetings, that would fall under Valerie's account. So no matter what, she'd be starting the meeting. You guys would join as Town of Bristol or join as whatever, Sharon's account, and then other meetings could happen at the same time. So we allow the ability to use it, and I don't see Zoom going away ever, or this type of platform. I think what it affords us is so much more connectivity and response with the community and with taxpayers to be able to join a meeting. Even employees. I mean, Val's calling in from home, as was Anthony, as was Meredith. If we didn't have this, if this goes away, all of those people need to sit in the room that you guys are in and wait until a particular time when their particular agenda item is called on. So I don't think Zoom is going to go away. It's just too useful a platform, or video conferencing, and it seems to work well for Neat. One of the concerns at the very beginning was, can you actually hear people? Can you see people? The OWL seems to be working really well. The school has now bought one on sort of just testing ours out and knowing and seeing how good it is. So this will be with us for a good amount of time in the future. So I see just this small investment of $300 to get a couple more licenses really benefits us, and it's still only probably like $5 or $2 a meeting now, the total cost that we're paying.
I think Peeker raised an interesting question about teams, and I had meant to look into this a little bit before tonight's meeting, but I didn't have the chance. More and more organizations, larger organizations, are moving towards teams, including state agencies, and I'm not sure why, but they're moving away from Zoom to Teams. So I think the licenses would be useful for this first year, perhaps. Maybe we look into the Teams and maybe during this period of time find that might be a reasonable alternative also.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, go on.
I haven't, you know that I'm technologically challenged, and I haven't had any problem with Teams. Everything I do with anything I do with the state is Teams.
Okay.
Probably maybe a conversation with Brett and Eric use Teams through work all the time. Brett and Eric use Teams through work all. Maybe they'd be a good place to start and ask.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'd recommend. I mean, I'm happy to look into that since it's part of Office 365, and we're trying to figure out how to use that better as well. And I think it's nice because it's all connected. At the same time, I think we should get the Zoom licenses because it's not a very expensive cost. Do it for a year, and we'll continue as we go. And at the same time, as I'm working on these IT things for the town offices, we can look at Teams and just see if that's going to be usable, and are we already paying for that service that we're not using. I'm happy to sort of research that and figure out if we can use that as a viable option in the future. But I think
the Addison County Economic Development Corp recently switched completely from Zoom to Teams, and I meant to reach out to them to explore what they went through to make that decision.
Okay.
Why don't we just give till next meeting for you two to look into this and tell us, maybe it's not a difficult switch. Maybe we switch our meetings and let everybody else use the Zoom account or whatever. But I mean, if it's something we're already paying for and it's not a difficult switch, I understand what we're familiar with is nice, but by the same token, if we're paying for something, or if $300 is not a lot of money, but we haven't looked into it. And if we is it going to make a difference in the next 2 weeks?
Yes, it would, which is why I'm recommending it. I think that it's a longer decision-making process to look at Teams. It would just take more than 2 weeks to see if it's a viable contender. I think there's not enough sort of knowledge about it at the moment, and I think if it's just me looking at it over the next 2 weeks, I think it's going to be difficult for me to research and find out. It's just difficult to find out what's installed at the town and how it's being used, and at what level we're paying and things like that. This is part of the bigger thing that I'm trying to wrap my head around in terms of what IT that we pay for at the offices and how it can be used, and also. The plus for the Zoom is that we've used it for the last 2 years. It's been very successful, and we have a number of meetings that are already pre-scheduled that are recurring every month. And so I think to switch now, even if it's a select board meeting, I think it would be a fairly big disruption. I think it's something that you would have to research and over a number of months period be able to transition. I think it's a difficult decision to do in a couple of weeks.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't used Teams a lot. Our office had some issues with it, and they may have fixed whatever those issues were. But does it have the capability that Zoom has? Can you share your screen? Can you record? There's all sorts of things that Zoom does that I don't know if Teams does. But yeah, I think it's going to take more than 2 weeks for Ian to hash this out.
I was
I
sorry.
agree.
I stepped out for a minute. What's the discussion of IT hardware and network updates to town offices? Is that part, you need
No,
that
you
part
know,
for the
we've
Zoom?
already, that was the firewall and.
Oh, okay.
And Ian's looking into some
Additional-
different stuff that we may not have to pay for.
Okay,
And then we moved on to Zoom.
okay. So this article should, or this agenda item should be split in two. We're just gonna vote on this, whether we go Zoom, buy another account or two of Zoom.
That's the proposal.
Yeah, and I don't know if we need to vote on it. It's $300. So
Right. This is ordinarily something that's within my budget threshold to just approve. I think that this
Moving
is on
on.
the agenda for the broader discussion of direction.
So consensus, I'm okay with it. I just think
Yeah.
that we should, it'll give us time to look into Teams and see if that works.
Yeah, I agree.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of different things, even what was brought up in this afternoon's ARPA meeting in terms of improving communication. I mean, the website is a big part of that. Also, being able to accept online payments, that's part of the IT and part of the website design. There are so many things wrapped up in the information technology for the town that we only have very small pieces of right now. You know, the website definitely needs improving, and by doing that, you can then accept credit card payments and things like that in a secure manner. You know, a number of towns around us already have those capabilities because they've updated. Zoom is a part of it, the actual hardware and the use of the sort of cloud sharing at the town offices needs to be looked at too, because we have these two sort of conflicting. We have Office 365 and we also have Dominion Text Cloud Server that are used in different ways. So it'd be really nice to sort of clean all that up and have it so it's all manageable, and then we can have a better structure at the town offices.
So Ian, do you actually have a plan written down somewhere of what you're looking at?
In terms of which part of it?
Any of it, so that we can see an overall plan of what you have and what direction you think you're going? Because right now we're just like picking and choosing, and you keep mentioning a plan, but I actually haven't seen anything in writing. So I was wondering if there was like a plan.
There's no plan at the moment because I can't make a
Okay.
plan without knowing what's going on with the technology. There have been a number of things that people have said they'd like to see or been frustrated with. So we're at the very, very early stages, and knowing that ARPA money could potentially be there and available to us, it's sort of figuring out what the needs are of the town, similar to what the ARPA is doing for those projects. I'm doing it for this, just trying to figure out. And part of that was sort of Chris coming in and sort of us talking to him about what the hardware is, and then it's like the website, and then it's the updates to Zoom and how to use that. I'm piecing it all together, but I have to find out more and have more discussions. And I'd like to do it sort of like at a staff meeting or maybe a separate meeting, just to see talk about the frustrations with Dominion Tech, talk about what your needs are, things like that, and then we can start to build sort of a bigger picture of what we might want to do.
Okay, so I thought maybe you might have a draft outline or something of what
No,
you're
I don't have
actually
enough.
looking at.
I don't have enough information to present a draft outline at the moment, but I'm working on it.
So the whole being able to accept credit cards and that safely, we have that option or had that option, and we opted not to do it because I think we opted to do it, but if you use a credit card to pay a bill here, you have to pay the credit card charges. Is that correct, Sharon?
That's correct. We do it for water, but the one we use for water is a terrible card. The one that Virgin's uses is pay.gov, and it seems to work well, at least on the user end. I don't know what they have inside for using a credit card inside, because the only thing I pay to the city is my sewer online, because my mortgage is escrowed. But the MuniNet that we have now, the water payments are a nightmare to you have to go in like 10 steps to figure out who paid and how much and on what date. You can't just print a report and tells you what it is. So there needs to be some research done there of what other towns have done. Some have, little card readers, some
Right.
you can do them online, some, we kind of need to move along into the, because there are a lot of towns that are smaller than us that do take credit cards.
Right.
But you will pay a fee for whatever service you use.
Right, and the reason we opted not to was because when we do our budgets and that 3% would cut into what we have for revenue. And that's why if you use a card here, you have to pay that 3% or whatever the card charges.
Yeah, like my sewer is 125 a quarter and I pay $3 and something to use my card and do it online.
That's
Right.
the same. Our office allows payment online through our website too. So, it's just a matter of finding out what the right software is. And, usually you get the warning that says, if you use your credit card, you're going to have a service fee or
Yeah,
whatever.
and it tells you how much it is.
Right.
And there's usually a maximum or just
Mhm.
depends on whether it's 3%. The state of Vermont does the same thing. If you go into DMV and use your card, you're paying a service charge. But if you do it through their website online, there isn't an extra charge.
I mean, ideally, we'd like to see every payment that you would make to the town, you'd be able to do it online, no matter what it is. And so can we get a system that accommodates all of that?
Right.
Is it a number of different systems because of the complexity with that? And that's all part of this discussion. And
Well,
and one of the-
you'd also want to make sure that it interacts with the cash receipts module. So you're not
Right.
doing an extra manual entering of payments. So there's a lot of different
Yeah.
avenues.
Yeah, and wrapped up in this is also the discussions of the budgeting software. That's part of the IT because it is a cost, but it's something that I think is really needed for the town. So those discussions will continue.
And
But okay,
I will
so
say that I just wanted to say NEMRIC is also going towards the platform of what you're looking at. They've already changed the dog module away from their current process, and it's more web-based, and then you'll be able to do more features, do more reports, and do different things that you can't do now in their structured software that they have. So eventually all their programs will be moved there because they're moving in that direction. But
Oh, good. Well, that's good to hear. Okay. All right. So it sounds like we're set. We can get a couple more Zoom licenses to support the meetings that we're doing. Okay, great. All right. Moving on.
Yeah.
American Rescue Plan Act.
Yeah, just
funding.
stay tuned on the rest of it.
Yes. It's a long, very long process. And it's mainly because it's just me doing it. So it'll take some time as I chip away. Item 5, American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funding update.
So I don't have a whole lot to report. Hope if folks had a chance to look at my report, I did mention that we did receive 2 very significant communications, one from Treasury and one from VTrans, both of which basically say that, Treasury is urging local governments to use their local the rescue funds to expand the workforce and provide competitive wages, expand access to affordable housing, and keep our families and communities safe. To use them funding for those broad categories. And then the email from VTrans was to clarify that the ARPA funds can now be used as local match for projects awarded through the VTrans municipal assistance. And of the 2 projects that we have for Basin Street, or the 2 funding sources we have for Basin Street, only one of them qualifies, the smaller one qualifies through that. So that would equal the $75,000 match.
Well,
If-
Lincoln Road Structures Grant, isn't it?
That might not be through the municipal assistance program. That's a different group, but I'll double check on that.
So is the SLFRF the same as ARPA?
Yes,
I mean,
yes, it's
Why
for
can't
those
they keep
communities
the
that
same numbers, the same?
it's
acronyms.
those of us that chose the revenue replacement, the standard deduction, basically.
We got it. We're a different group now.
Yeah. A whole new category.
One of the things that's concerned me with this, with the ARPA funds and is the fact that we have all of these organizations, and I'm not saying any of them are bad organizations, but all of these organizations from out of town that are looking for money, they do service, but you know, like Turning Point and what's the counseling service one?
Counseling, so Astor County.
The one that CSAC, they're all asking money, and my opinion on that would be, I don't have a problem with giving money to them. The only thing that I would like to see is that it's done at the same rate of every other community in Addison County, because the money was given for us to use in Bristol. Every other community got their money. If I give money to an organization that serves the whole community, my personal feeling is that every other community ought to be given the same percentage, or at least are based on the amount of population they have. I mean, I think that's, if we're going to give money to nonprofits, that's the caveat that I would place on it, that it would have to be equal with the other towns in the county.
I don't know how you're going to prove that, or how you're going to get that confirmation that it's being done.
No, because we're all doing it at a different time. But I just don't, you know, this 1.3 million dollars was given to the community of Bristol. New Haven got their chunk, Starksboro got their chunk, Middlebury got theirs. And I've said right along, I want to help the most people, I want to help our community and help the most people possible. I think, you know, like Bruce's request is awesome. I think that, you know, I think that's one that we need to seriously consider. But other than that, I have a hard time with these outside organizations.
Well, my issue, you know, I don't disagree with you, but my other issue is we already give money to these organizations every year. So they're asking for extra and additional funds outside of what we give them for our appropriations.
And one thing I would just put on the table, if the town is considering giving monies to any organization, is to understand what their plan is for using it. Is it just going to sit in a cash box somewhere? I mean, what do they have a plan for using this infusion of money? So that would be my interest.
Ian, you've sat in on these meetings. Any consideration to any of this?
It's tough because those organizations are genuinely need that money. You know, we did the town one today, and so obviously that was very town focused because it was town employees giving feedback and giving their comments. You know, the nonprofit one, I sat in on that, and it was sort of just recognizing the part of it was the two things that came out of it was transportation, allowing people to get to places that they can't currently get to, and also housing. And there was the discussion from the person at CSAC when they asked, like, would you use this money towards salaries for keeping employees? And they said no, they'd much rather see housing so that their employees had somewhere to live to be able to work at their organization. But I do think it's good to sort of look at what you're asking. We can't do that because we don't know what other towns are doing, but it is something to consider in terms of how we might judge or how we might vote on these particular things. And it goes through a process where the committee will look at all the different ideas. It'll go out to the public will vote on them, and then, you know, we'll be presented with a list. So they're going to be well vetted, and there'll be a matrices of terms of what project, you know, what are the things that a project should meet in order to really be put forward in terms of consideration. So I think some of those things will probably be looked at. One of the ideas, go on.
It makes me nervous that, you know, we go out to vote, and I've seen it happen upstairs at town meeting. If there's a group that wants something passed, all those people show up for that particular thing. And it just makes me nervous that the process is going to be skewed a little bit in that respect.
No, because they can, well, those organizations, no matter who it is, can give feedback and make suggestions, but it really is the committee running through and vetting different projects in the way that they decide they're going to do that, sending it back to the public, where the Bristol public will be able to vote and give their own opinions.
How will that happen?
Yeah, that's, I mean,
How will
that's,
that public vote come?
Unclear at the moment. They haven't decided on the methods that they would use. They're being very thorough, so it's not going to be something where it's just a single post on Front Porch Forum and you pick 1, 2, or 3. You know, they're trying to reach as many people as possible, and it's, I think some of that is up for discussion. They don't know how to reach everyone at the moment. I mean, there's no way to do that really, but it'll be multiple ways of connecting with people.
It ultimately
I don't
goes
know
back
that
to the select board anyway.
Correct. But
Jim has a question.
Jimmy's got a comment.
Jim.
As Michelle just said, it goes back to the select board. As far as I'm concerned as a taxpayer, this money is coming to Bristol. It should be used within Bristol. We have enough problems that we have to rectify in Bristol. We shouldn't give to any organization outside. They all mean well. Eventually, they may help 1 or 2 people in town with what they're doing, but it should be within Bristol to benefit the Bristol community. End of conversation. And the select board should have the final say.
Okay.
That's all.
Yep. Thanks, Jim. Yeah. So I think, you know, they'll be well vetted and hopefully as many Bristol taxpayers and residents as possible will be able to have a look at that final list and make a decision and at least, you know, put their ideas and choices forward. I would say I agree with you, Peker, in terms of the position that Bruce is proposing. I think that's a really needed position that could really benefit a lot of people in the town. I made a suggestion today at the meeting for the town employees, and I was discussing it with one of the ARPA one of the committee members, and he suggested that we perhaps look at a grant writing position. If you create a position like the social services position, let's say it's 80,000, that's the number that Bruce has put forward, that's still going to have to be come out of taxes, have to be put into the budget for the year after and the next year and the next year. I think a grant writing position, it seems like the potential for that, where that person would need to find grant money to support their own position as well as support grant writing in town, I think could be really valuable. It's something where it sort of pays for itself. A lot of times it's used in academia at colleges and universities where your position is grant funded and you're writing to secure your position year after year, but it's something where I think the amount of projects that we have as a town, we really need to find someone who can work with Val and perhaps take that section away from Val to be able to allow her to work on other things in terms of getting grant money to fund all these different projects. And so it seems like that kind of position could really be a huge benefit to the town and bring in a very good return on investment. Not to say that other positions wouldn't, but that particular kind of position could really be benefiting us. And it's a position that not only you could provide grant funding or grant opportunities for town projects, but perhaps even other Bristol nonprofits could be able to use that person to be able to help them with grants for their own organization. So again, it benefits other Bristol organizations as well. Any other updates on that, Val?
No, just you've covered a lot of it. The focus groups are in progress. There's another one tomorrow night, and and then one thing I wanted to note was in my TA report in the calendar section, I had noted that the next ARPA committee meeting was June 16th or June 13th, because I thought we had switched meetings to the next one, but I was corrected today that it remains the 6th. It's still the first Monday in June.
Okay. Yeah, just the chair, she won't be there, but Chris Burley, vice chair, he'll chair it. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Where are we? Item 6, appointment and reappointment of town officers.
We can skip this item. We don't have any new applications. I thought there might be because I was intending to do another push of advertising, but the week just didn't allow for it.
Okay. All right. Item 7, review and approval of minutes. What do we have?
We have January 17th.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept them with one correction. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fifth sentence down, I'll start with the fourth sentence. Valerie asked if we could add shields. Ian said he doesn't think it's necessary as it's only for those that can't work mask. Shouldn't that say wear mask?
Yeah, I sent in my changes to Val, I think.
Yeah. So Michelle caught that.
Okay,
I had a couple changes.
that's all I had on that one. A couple little minor things, but yeah, I said work mask. I think that's supposed to say wear.
So, with
I
regard
just got a comment, Ian.
Sure.
That meeting was 18 weeks ago. And we had a mistake like that. I'm not saying one or the other, but are we stepping over $1 to find a penny in these minutes? We've got all the way back to when? August 23rd, almost a year, 9 months. I think we gotta clear them up, and if there are mistakes in them, pass them. I mean, I think it's dragged on way too long. Or start with the August, next month, the goal, next meeting, August and September 13th have got to be in front of us. Or we pass them no matter if they're wrong, completely wrong in spelling and things like that.
I agree, Joel. I think we need to find someone separate to do the minutes. I think we need to look out and hire
I don't
somebody.
think that's the problem.
It is the problem because today Val didn't do the minutes because she was doing something else. And so and Sharon's working on the minutes, but she does a million other things. The minutes is an additional thing in her job description. So I'd like to see the minutes go to somebody else to do them, because we now have, I think it's 9 meetings that we don't have any minutes for online, which is illegal. We're not allowed to do that, and it's just not good enough. And we've talked about this at length in multiple meetings, and it's still not corrected, and it's still not up to what it should be. And so I think we need to have someone who can produce the minutes and write them, and as you suggested, Joel, just get them done and get them on the site in a draft. I think we're spending too much time, and I don't think we're ever going to catch up. And I don't think, and it's no fault of Sharon or Val. It's just the amount of work that it takes to do the minutes. So I think we need to find somebody else if we can.
We'll try. Presuming the select board agrees.
That's my feeling. I mean, look at the amount of minutes that we don't have on the website. It only gets larger with each meeting because we get behind with tonight's meeting or 2 weeks ago. I just don't see it ending. And it's just something that I think we can take out of both of your responsibilities, both Sharon's and Val's, and make it better and make it much easier.
It's not going to change if they still have to review them to make sure they're right. And that's the issue now. They just don't have the time to review them. They have them. They just don't have the time to get through them. And it's not going to change anything by having somebody else do them, other than the fact that we'll get a draft up on a website quicker.
We don't have them, though. We don't have them. Sharon's working on them, but they're not done. There are a number that are on this list that aren't completed. It's not like there's a backlog of like they're all done. That's not the case. And I'm fine with the meeting happening, us typing up the minutes, and within the whatever it is, 3 days or 5 days, that Sharon's draft going up there. But I don't think Sharon has enough time to be able to do that because she's doing too many other things. She was kind enough to volunteer to do the minutes because she has experience with that, but I think it's just one of those things that she just does too many other things in her normal job to be able to take this on. It's just too much. And I'd like to see that change.
And just to clarify that before, I mean, when Sharon volunteered, offered to take on the minutes, that was before, I believe, that was before we had the transition of the treasurer. And then also she lost her, she lost her clerk support, administrative, the assistant clerk support. So a lot of things shifted back onto Sharon.
Right. And also too, I don't think it should be part of her job. There are too many other important things that she does, even with support in those areas. Or the other option is to get support for you, Val. Get an administrative assistant that is for you, and maybe the position of grant writer is that kind of position, and that person works on the minutes. You know, looking at other towns, there are select board assistants. Can we get a select board assistant that does the minutes? Is that something we want to create?
Well, Tasha was a board clerk.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I just think that needs to come back, because I think unless we can post all of those minutes tomorrow on the website, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing as a town. We're failing at that, and we've had this.
I think, Sharon, I think your minutes can go up. They may not have all the detail in there, but there's certain stuff in them, because I think I reviewed January 24th, and I told Sharon I'd do some more. I think she sent me February 21st, so I'll be working on those. But I mean, she's got the information in there. There's just not detail.
Yeah, she's got the bones.
Right. So, they can go up. They're just not going to be the full detail.
Yeah, how much detail do you want in them? You gotta draw the line at some point.
Michelle, I get Middlebury's select board minutes next Monday for tomorrow's night's meeting. Done, bung, cleaned up. They vote on them. And then the following Tuesday, I get them in the mail. I get them on my email at work. They turn them around in a week. And
They've hired somebody to do that. That's all she does.
Their town clerk.
Well, you need to
I'm
understand
just saying, we
that,
got so far behind. Now, I don't know if we're ever going to catch up.
yeah, well, part of
We
the
will.
reason we're behind
catch
is
up.
because of all the other duties that we're asking our clerk to do.
Right.
I mean, she's doing treasurer work better than half the time, and that's not her job.
No,
I mean, if she had the ability to just do her job, we need to get our treasurer up and running. And so that she's not taking her time while he's still learning. And I don't know, he's getting it, I guess, but he's just, and how much longer are we gonna have Peter? That's another concern, Peter. I guess he can't drive himself anymore, so he has to count on somebody to get him to and from work. And if we lose him, and what are we gonna do then?
Can I make a?
And what about the assistant clerk advertisement? I mean, because Middlebury has a full-time assistant clerk who does a lot of her work as well. So that gives the clerk time to do other stuff.
That's a goal.
Where do we stand on? I guess we're getting off subject, but I make a motion, we'll approve January 17th with Michelle's and my corrections.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that item? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
All those against, nay. Motion carries. If we have the minutes available for past meetings, put them on the website ASAP. I don't want to see nine gaps where nothing's there. And I think moving forward, I think we need to change who does the minutes, allowing Sharon more time to do her other duties as well as additional duties. And I think we also need to change the way in which the minutes are formatted. I want them to be, or I'd like them to be, much less detail. I don't think we need it. Every meeting we have is recorded and recorded well and available on YouTube very easily for people to look at. And I think if we reduce the amount of detail in them and just be very succinct in terms of the motions carried and motions passed and brief discussion, that allows Val to be able to look through and make her changes very quickly. I think it's just the amount of detail we have in ours, because Sharon's so good at taking minutes, is working against us, because it's just taking so much time for Val to be able to do them. Because Val's doing a million other things as well. So I think that's
No,
something
I think Val's the one that likes the detail.
No, that's not true. No, I'd rather much less detail. I think a lot more. I don't mean to be critical, but I think a lot more can be consolidated into concise statements or general discussion. And there's too much he said, she said. I mean, it's interesting, but I don't think it's necessary.
And each minute taker does their minutes in their own way. So I think we just need to find someone. I want to see that either advertised so we can get someone to do it. Let's reach out to other towns, see how they do it. Does that person want to work on doing this? I just think that's the way forward. I don't think we're ever going to catch up. And I think we need to standardize the formatting, and so we get the formatting that we want that allows people to work through the minutes and get them done. Okay, moving on. Authorize accounts payable, warrant, any liquor licenses.
There's one liquor license here.
Okay.
Yes, it's a
Sign.
new one from
Yeah.
Mini Factory, which is where the Bristol Bakery used to be.
So you guys have to come in and sign that.
Okay.
And there's one pay order for Beaker and I sign, $98,546.37.
Is that the updated one?
Yes,
As of 5/23
yes.
at 5:55.
All right, sounds good. Select Board Roundtable, Joel.
I just have one, is R&L now doing Main Street twice a week now, starting in the summer months? Like, yeah,
No. I've talked to them about that, and I was monitoring the trash. Bruce kindly took some photos and let me know that the bins were overflowing. I think it was a Friday afternoon a couple weeks ago, and I called and they picked them up on the Saturday, and he did ask about if we wanted to go to twice a week. I said I wanted to just check and just see with the new bins and the amount of bins we have and the size, whether it just happened to be a freak occurrence that they were overflowing. Did they not get picked up that previous Monday? So I'm still sort of testing that. And Bruce is kindly sort of monitoring that as well as he does his rounds on the park. So at the moment, I don't think we need to move unless you've or other people have seen overflowing trash. I'm hoping that we don't have to do that. I think their Monday pickup for both recycling and trash is working well. And I don't think we've had the issues that we've had in the past year or the past years. So we might not have to go to twice a week, which would be nice and will save us a little bit of money.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right. Peaker.
Ash tree in front of George Vince's apartment on North Street, just north of the old fire station, is completely dead. I'm guessing it's the emerald ash borer. Probably. Have you seen it?
I haven't paid much attention. I can tomorrow.
I just happened to notice it today. The bark's
did
all
too.
falling off it, and it.
Gone completely.
The problem with that emerald ash borer is that tree's gonna come down on its own, so. And that's.
Probably something they could cut.
Yeah, I think it's not a very big one.
No,
Probably something you guys could cut.
I don't know where the wires are there.
Right.
I'll look at it and see where the wires are and stuff.
That's all I got.
Okay. Michelle.
I'm good.
Just an update on the welcome signs. I installed them all today. I had to replace a little bit of the horizontal wood pieces because they had rotted just with water hitting them and sitting on there for 22 years. So I replaced those with 2x4s that I primed, and I installed the signs today. And we're going to have Greg Cromus, a local handyman. He'll do a little bit of the scraping and repainting of the other pressure treated pieces, the vertical posts. And then that project should be done. And he's hoping to get to that in the next couple of weeks. I wanted to put the signs in just because it was good weather and I had the signs and they were ready to go. So that's good. And I think they look really good. I'd like to thank Everest James, Brad Cameron, and Rebecca Everest. They are the designers of the new signs. I'd like to thank them publicly for all their work. They provided $2,500 in kind of design services for the town for their designing of the new sign and the multiple revisions that we went through. And my time is in kind, which is about another $1,500 for the time I've spent on this project. So I just want people to know that we've saved a lot of money, even though the signs for printing, we had to pay that, which was $600, and maybe paying a small amount to Greg for the repainting, is that it's a very small amount compared to the in-kind contributions to community members for that particular project. And if we can get 22 years out of the signs, I'd say that $700 or $800, it's a pretty good deal for getting 3 new welcome signs. And that's all I have.
Oh, and Joel, quick question. You guys were talking about the speed sign on 116 North. You thought it was moved. I don't think it was ever moved because I go by it every day and it's like, it's still in the same spot it was.
Looking at Google Maps, it seems like it's always been there, and it's about 10 feet in front of our sign. I'm debating whether to continue asking them to move it, which I'm sure is going to be very difficult, or just leave it and hope that because we have a brand new sign there that people's eyes will be drawn from the 40 to our brand new sign, and people won't be missing it. So we'll see. We'll find out.
I don't think so. I just think it's not. It doesn't. To me, it doesn't block it. I still see both signs when I go by. So
okay.
I'm guessing Bruce is hoping they don't take their eyes off the 40-mile-an-hour sign.
Hopefully you can do both. I mean, signage is designed to not overlap and be distanced from each other. This has 2 signs that are almost parallel with each other. But I think the new design is fantastic and is far more readable than the old signs were. And so I think that both signs can be read easily as people are driving by. And it's a long run up down 116, so there's plenty of time to be able to read both. Alrighty. Town Administrator's Report.
You're muted.
Val, you're muted.
Thanks. Sorry about that. So I already updated the ARPA committee meeting date. One thing though I do want to make sure folks are aware of is that the West Hill Slope project is going to be starting next week. And one of the interesting situations that suddenly, I guess, came up was the power lines in front of 25 West Street are really low. If you see that, they're very low, and the contractor needs at least 16-foot clearance underneath those utility lines to get their long reach machinery in there. And it turns out that the utility companies spent a fair amount of effort examining what they can do, but there isn't enough slack in that stretch of line at 25 West Street. But it turns out at 27 West Street, in front of Alan Clark's property, there is enough slack, and they are able to raise it up high enough. And today, we learned that the contractor can go through Alan Clark's yard and with the long reach gizmo and do the job from there. And Alan Clark has agreed to allow that to happen. There's going to need to be some impacts to his property, some lilac stuff, and some other trees will need to be moved, and a pole will need to be moved. But overall, it's not terrible impact, and he's agreeable to it. And so, that's it's likely to start. I'm not sure when the power line part can be dealt with, but they're planning. The contractor's planning to begin work next week.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. And many thanks to both the LaRoses and Alan Clark for their willingness to allow this to be, to allow their properties to be impacted by this.
Okay, anything else, Val?
No, that's, and just to reiterate what's in my report, the East Street sidewalk, there's a site, pre-construction site visit tomorrow morning at 9. And after that, the contractor wants to get going. So conceivably, that project is going to get started this week. I hung door hanger notices on the residents' doors this afternoon to let them know. And we'll see what happens.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully we get new sidewalk.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Other business correspondence reports, correspondence received.
No. Select board members received the revolving loan fund status reports. We received the written notice of Alex's resignation, and also a resignation from the bicycle pedestrian committee. We received informal notification that a member of the planning commission is expected to resign, but we haven't received that yet.
Okay.
And then a memo from the energy committee with an interesting memo about EV charging station project.
Okay. And we have executive session.
Yes.
Okay.
And Eric should be invited in.
Okay.
Hey, I guess I'll make the motion to enter into executive session to discuss personnel matters. Is that just it, Val? Just personnel?
Correct.
For 1 VSA section 313, and invite Eric Oda to.
Super. Thank you. We have a
Yeah.
motion. We have a second.
Speaker seconded.
Okay.
Oh,
If you
thanks.
can.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Raise your hand.
All right.
Aye.
Those against, nay. Motion carries. We're in executive session.
Great,
Thank you very much, everyone.
Good night, Jimmy. Good night, Sharon.
Yeah.
Hey, Val, before